Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 1, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴82 on WhatIf. Now let's start. All Might surveyed the abandoned building, uncertainty etched on his face as he turned to 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 confirmed their location, preparing for the raid. He explained that they had received information about illegal operations conducted by a company, specifically regarding a research scientist who had been fired and had embezzled millions. They had finally tracked him down to this site, but the unknowns ahead required everyone to be on high alert. Noticing All Might's perspiration, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 expressed concern for his well-being, reminding him that it had only been a month since his last incident. All Might reassured him with a smile, insisting he couldn't let past events hinder his role as the symbol of peace. Gran Torino, stretching his legs, cautioned All Might to avoid reckless actions. The team moved stealthily, entering the building through a side entrance. The dimly lit interior, filled with dusty, unused equipment, created an unsettling atmosphere. They followed 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 through the dark corridors until they discovered a hidden doorway behind a false wall. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 signaled for everyone to prepare as he pressed a concealed switch, causing the door to slide open and reveal a staircase leading down into the depths. As they descended, the air grew colder and more sterile. At the bottom, they entered a large, high-tech laboratory bustling with activity. Scientists in lab coats looked up in surprise as 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 shouted for them to freeze. The startled scientists began to scatter, but the police team quickly apprehended them. Gran Torino seized the moment to confront the head scientist, a middle-aged man exhibiting a nervous twitch. He demanded to know what was happening in the lab. The scientist hesitated, his gaze darting toward a large control panel across the room. Following his glance, Gran Torino pressed a prominent button, causing the floor to rumble and shift, revealing a hidden capsule. Inside the capsule lay a 15-year-old boy, unconscious and surrounded by complex machinery. As the capsule emerged fully, a nearby computer screen flickered to life, displaying a file titled Project S, The New All Might. All Might, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, and Gran Torino gathered around the screen, their expressions shifting to shock as they read the details. The file outlined the boy's quirk, solar absorption, enabling him to absorb and convert solar energy into extraordinary powers. It also detailed the extensive modifications and experiments aimed at creating the perfect successor to All Might, intended for the corporation's political and economic gain. All Might's expression darkened as he absorbed the information. He felt a mix of anger and sorrow, realizing the boy had been exploited. Gran Torino turned to the head scientist, his fury evident as he demanded to know how they could experiment on a child. The scientist finally stammered an explanation, claiming they were trying to secure a future. He insisted that All Might would not be around forever and that they needed a new symbol to maintain order. The boy, he claimed, was perfect for the role. All Might's eyes narrowed, disbelief and anger swirling within him as he pressed for the boy's name. The scientist shifted uncomfortably, admitting that the boy had no name, his memory erased during the experiments. They had referred to him as Subject S. All Might's heart sank at the revelation of the boy's lost identity and the inhumane treatment he had endured. As he continued reading, he discovered plans to implant commands into the boy's psyche, intended to control him. Fortunately, that process had not yet begun, leaving the boy free from manipulation for the time being. The scientist, with a crazed smile, spoke of the 𝐻𝐼ROZU Corporation's cancellation of the investigation upon discovering their misuse of funds. He had persisted, convinced that the boy could become a tool to rival All Might in his prime. All Might's fists clenched, struggling to contain his fury as he confronted the scientist about his view of the boy as merely a means to an end. The scientist shrugged, coldly asserting that power was everything and that he had done what was necessary for his legacy. Gran Torino stepped forward, his anger palpable as he denounced the scientist's actions as madness. All Might took a deep breath, his resolve solidifying as he decided to take the boy to 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 immediately. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation, and instructed the officers to secure the area and gather evidence while ensuring the raid remained confidential. As officers moved to restrain the compliant scientists, Gran Torino warned the head scientist that he would answer for his actions. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 gently lifted the boy from the capsule, feeling a surge of protectiveness. This boy, stripped of his identity and manipulated for others' ambitions, deserved a chance at a real life. The details of the cruel experiments burned into 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷's memory. Outside, the cold night air enveloped them as they loaded the capsule into a secure vehicle. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 sat beside the boy, his thoughts racing about what lay ahead. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷, the principal of 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 High School, was a trusted ally who could offer the boy sanctuary and guidance. Upon arriving at 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷, they met 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷, whose keen intellect and empathy reassured 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷. Together, they transferred the capsule to a specially prepared room equipped with medical devices. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷's expression turned grave as he reviewed the situation, acknowledging the troubling implications of the experiments conducted on the boy. They had to proceed carefully. Midnight observed the boy being examined by Recovery Girl, expressing her disbelief at the treatment he had endured. Present Mike echoed her sentiments, emphasizing the severity of the situation. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 nodded solemnly, his gaze fixed on the boy in the capsule, acknowledging the unimaginable experiences he had faced. Their focus now shifted to helping him. Recovery Girl emerged from the examination room, her expression thoughtful. She reported that the boy seemed physically stable but remained in a deep, protective slumber, making it impossible to wake him. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷, deep in contemplation, asserted the need for confidentiality regarding the boy's situation, recognizing the potential consequences of the unethical means used to create him. Midnight sighed, her concern evident, while Present Mick's usual cheerfulness faded, replaced by a serious demeanor, acknowledging that this situation transcended typical hero work. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷's mind raced as he contemplated their next steps. He mentioned a potential ally, David Shield, an old friend from America known for his expertise in cutting-edge research and quirk studies. Torino agreed, recalling David's reliability. With determination, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 reached for his phone and contacted David, explaining the urgency and need for discretion. David assured them that arrangements would be made on 𝐼-Island, a secure location known for its advanced technological facilities. Wasting no time, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 and Gran Torino set off for the island. Upon their arrival at 𝐼-Island, the atmosphere contrasted sharply with the tense environment they had left behind. David Shield greeted them warmly, though his expression mirrored their concern as he looked at the boy in the capsule. He expressed his longing to help and also check on 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷's injury. 𝐶𝐻 nodded, and they moved toward David's private lab. Inside, David carefully studied the file 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 had provided, his brow furrowing as he reviewed the troubling details of the boy's quirk and the experiments conducted on him. The implications of this research weighed heavily on him. 𝐶𝐻, recognizing the gravity of the situation, earnestly requested David's help in keeping the matter confidential and finding a way to assist the boy. David, determined, assured them he would do everything possible, starting with a thorough analysis to ensure the boy's stability before unraveling the extent of the experiments conducted on him. With David's expertise and support, 𝐶𝐻 felt a sense of relief. A month passed since Kai's awakening on 𝐼-Island, and his progress was remarkable. Under the guidance of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷, Gran Torino, and David Shield, he honed his incredible abilities, which included super strength, flight, invulnerability, heat vision, X-ray vision, super speed, super breath, and enhanced senses. Though he struggled with control and social interactions, he grew more capable each day. The training grounds buzzed with activity as Kai faced another round of combat robots designed to challenge his skills. He moved with grace and power, his agility rendering the robots' attacks ineffective. With a single exhale, he sent them flying. As he demolished another wave of robots, his mentors watched with pride and amazement. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 remarked on Kai's rapid improvement, while Gran Torino emphasized the importance of preparing him for real combat situations. David Shield, closely monitoring Kai's progress, called for a break. Kai landed smoothly, eager for more training. David explained that they had been analyzing his abilities, revealing that his quirk, solar absorption, allowed him to draw energy from the sun, fueling all his powers. The more sunlight he absorbed, the stronger he became. David elaborated on how his cells acted like solar batteries, storing and converting sunlight into energy, which explained both his diverse abilities and his struggles with control. Gran Torino added that this solar energy also contributed to Kai's rapid recovery. Kai absorbed this information, feeling a renewed determination to master the intake and distribution of his energy. David assured him that they would focus on helping him gain control over his solar absorption, enhancing his abilities and maintaining them consistently. As the sun set over the training grounds, Kai felt a renewed sense of purpose. His journey was just beginning, but he was getting closer to becoming the hero he aspired to be. Later that evening, while walking through the bustling areas of 𝐼𝐼𝐿and with Melissa, who had become his closest friend, she encouraged him to connect with people and understand their needs. Despite his struggles with social interactions, Kai was determined to improve. As they walked, a student roughly bumped into Melissa, causing her to stumble. Kai instinctively stepped forward, but before he could react, the student sneered at Melissa, mocking her. Melissa's face flushed with embarrassment and anger as she quietly asked the bully to leave her alone. Kai frowned, positioning himself protectively between her and the bully, ready to stand up for his friend. Carl sneered at Kai, questioning who he thought he was with his new bodyguard. He pushed against Kai's chest, but Kai remained unmoved. Confused, Kai asked what Carl was trying to do. Frustrated, Carl shouted for him to stay out of it and attempted to shove Kai again, only to find himself outmatched. Scowling, he walked away, declaring that Kai wasn't worth his time. Turning to Melissa, who appeared downcast, Kai softly asked if she was okay. She nodded but avoided his gaze, assuring him she was fine. Sensing her discomfort, Kai inquired about what it meant to be quirkless. With a sigh, Melissa explained that it meant she lacked any powers, unlike almost everyone else. In a world where quirks were the norm, being quirkless made her an outcast, and people like Carl looked down on her for it. Kai listened intently, his expression serious. He reassured her that she was amazing, emphasizing that her intelligence, kindness, and bravery mattered more than any powers. Melissa's eyes softened, and a small smile appeared on her lips as she thanked him, expressing how much his words meant to her. Kai smiled back, promising to always be there to help her, just as she had helped him. As they walked through the bustling areas of 𝐼𝐼𝐿and, their conversation shifted to lighter topics, easing the tension from their earlier encounter. They discussed their training sessions, the challenges Kai would face at 𝐸, and Melissa's future plans. Meanwhile, in a secluded meeting room at 𝐸 High School, All Might, Gran Torino, David Shield, and Principal 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐻 reviewed Kai's academic and power control advancements. Holographic screens displayed footage of Kai's training sessions and simulations. All Might pointed to a screen showing Kai neutralizing combat drones with ease, expressing pride in his remarkable progress under pressure. Gran Torino agreed, noting Kai's potential to handle tough situations but emphasizing the need for consistent control over his abilities. David Shield highlighted Kai's exceptional academic aptitude, showcasing his ability to grasp complex subjects and apply knowledge practically. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐻, observing thoughtfully, suggested recommending Kai as a potential student for 𝐸 High School, while also stressing the importance of preparing him for the upcoming entrance exams in a month's time. All Might expressed confidence in Kai's readiness as the meeting concluded. 2 weeks flew by, and it was time for Kai, Gran Torino, and All Might to return to Japan. The night before their departure, Kai and Melissa shared a quiet moment by the docks, the island's skyline shimmering in the background. Kai earnestly promised to write and call her often, wanting to share everything that happened. Melissa smiled, though a hint of sadness lingered in her eyes, urging him to keep in touch about his adventures at 𝐸. As they embraced, the bond they had forged during Kai's time on 𝐼𝐼𝐿and felt stronger than ever. He knew he was leaving behind a dear friend but was determined to make her proud. The next morning at the private jet terminal, All Might and Gran Torino prepared for their journey back to Japan. Kai stood with them, his mind swirling with emotions. Noticing his pensive demeanor, All Might placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder and began discussing something important. To protect Kai's identity and make his appearance at 𝐻𝐿 more credible, they decided to introduce him as All Might's son. Surprised, Kai processed this information, understanding that it was the best cover story given his abilities and circumstances. Gran Torino added that this arrangement would also ensure Kai's safety, as some might want to take advantage of him. After considering it, Kai nodded, agreeing to do his best to make it believable. Standing before the 𝐻𝐿 high school gates, Kai felt a rush of anticipation. Surprisingly, he chose to take the normal entrance exam, wanting to earn his place like everyone else. Principal 𝐁𝐮𝐬 accepted his decision, and Kai passed the exam with flying colors, showcasing not only his immense power but also his strategic thinking and quick reflexes. Now dressed in his 𝐻𝐿 uniform, he was ready to embark on his new journey. As he walked through the halls searching for Class 1A, a mix of excitement and nervousness filled him. Turning a corner, he nearly collided with a girl with striking blue hair and bright green eyes. She laughed and asked if he was looking for Class 1A too. Grateful for the friendly encounter, Kai introduced himself. Together, they found Class 1A and took their seats, discussing their expectations and excitement for the year ahead. Their conversation was interrupted when their teacher, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, entered the room, looking as disheveled as always. He welcomed them to 𝐻𝐿 high school and introduced himself as their homeroom teacher. The next 3 years passed in a blur for Kai, Arya, and Hiroshi. Their bond deepened as they trained relentlessly, pushing themselves to new limits. Kai found solace in their friendship, focusing on the present and future rather than dwelling on his tumultuous past as Subject S. At 𝐻𝐿 high school, they became legendary among their peers as the Big Three, known for their strength, skill, and unwavering determination. Kai's natural leadership emerged, tempered by humility and respect for his friends' abilities. Together, they tackled challenges that seemed insurmountable, their teamwork growing stronger with each victory. Throughout their journey, Kai felt compelled to mentor younger students, offering guidance and support born from his own struggles. His experiences as Subject S, once a source of pain, transformed into a wellspring of empathy and understanding. Yet, he continued his search for the woman he saw in his dreams. During all this time, Kai made sure to keep Melissa updated on everything that happened, ensuring their connection remained strong despite the distance. Through calls and messages, he shared every triumph and challenge, from his battles against formidable opponents to his struggles with controlling his powers. Melissa, in turn, told Kai about her own adventures at Island Academy, where she excelled in her studies and developed groundbreaking support equipment for heroes. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. One night, while talking on the phone, Kai mentioned he was struggling to come up with a hero name. Melissa asked if he had thought about what his name should represent. Kai sighed, expressing his longing for a name that reflected his abilities and dedication to protecting people, but nothing seemed to fit. Melissa paused thoughtfully and suggested a name that reminded her of stories her father used to tell her about a hero with unmatched strength and a heart of gold. It symbolized hope and the idea of being a beacon for others. Kai considered it, a smile slowly spreading across his face. He liked the name and thanked Melissa. She responded warmly, saying he truly embodied what that name stood for. Throughout his time at 𝐻𝐿, Kai saw his father, All Might, gradually growing weaker. Despite this, their bond strengthened. 𝐻𝐿 treated Kai as his own son, and Kai felt the same way, viewing 𝐻𝐿 as the father he had never had. When the news of their relationship was revealed, all of Japan was taken by surprise. Finally, it was Kai's last day as a student, and he was officially becoming a pro hero. He, Arya, and Hiroshi stood together in their graduation robes, a sense of accomplishment and nostalgia hanging in the air. Arya expressed her pride, and Hiroshi clapped Kai on the back, encouraging him to show the world what they could do. Kai smiled, feeling a mix of pride and excitement for the future, ready to make his mark. After graduation, instead of entering the hero world directly, Kai took 6 months off to travel the world, visiting many places until he returned to Japan to make his hero debut. As time passed, he quickly rose through the ranks of the hero world, entering the top 15 heroes in Japan, known for his strength, leadership, and unwavering dedication to protecting others. Superman became an inspiration for many, even though he wasn't yet at the level of his father. One afternoon, while flying over the city without his hero costume, Kai was on his way to dinner with his father, who was moving to the city to become a professor at 𝐴, in search of his successor. Suddenly, Kai spotted his father on a rooftop, talking to a green-haired boy. He overheard the boy asking if someone without a quirk could be like his father, wondering if he could be a hero that saves others with a smile even without any powers. Intrigued, Kai descended towards them. Not everyone is created equal. That was the harsh truth 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐲 learned when he was just 4 years old. It was a truth etched into his young mind when he was diagnosed as quirkless, a term that would define much of his early life. From the moment he entered school, Izuku faced relentless bullying. His peers mocked him for his lack of a quirk, something that in their world of heroes and superpowers seemed to be the only measure of worth. Izuku's childhood was marked by a deep admiration for heroes, particularly two who would shape his destiny. All Might, the symbol of peace, became his idol from a young age. Izuku watched every video, read every article, and dreamed of one day standing tall like his hero. All Might's debut as a hero was a moment of awe and inspiration for Izuku, a beacon of hope in a world where strength seemed to dictate everything. As Izuku grew older, he faced the harsh reality of his quirkless condition. Bullies at school tormented him, reinforcing the belief that he was worthless without a quirk. Even as he entered his first year of middle school, hope seemed distant. But then, something unexpected happened. Superman, the prodigious hero and son of All Might, made his debut. Superman's arrival as a pro-hero coincided with a pivotal moment in Izuku's life. It was a time when he began to question his own dreams and abilities. Seeing Superman in action, using his powers for good, reignited Izuku's determination. He realized that being quirkless didn't define him, it was his heart and his choices that mattered. Despite the challenges and setbacks, Izuku's resolve grew stronger. He immersed himself in hero studies, learning everything he could about heroics and strategy. His admiration for All Might and Superman fueled his longing to become a hero himself, to protect others and make a difference. As 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐲 walked home after school in his 3rd year of middle school, his mind buzzed with thoughts of Bakugo Katsuki, his longtime childhood friend turned relentless bully. Bakugo's harsh words still echoed in his mind, urging Izuku to take a leap from the rooftop and wish for a quirk in his next life. A cruel reminder of the societal pressure that weighed heavily on him as a quirkless individual. Lost in his thoughts, Izuku found himself on a familiar path, his steps heavy with the weight of self-doubt and frustration. As if fate were toying with him, his mundane journey home took a sudden and terrifying turn. A menacing sludge villain materialized before him, its grotesque form oozing malevolence and danger. Frozen in place, Izuku's breath caught in his throat as fear gripped him. But just when all hope seemed lost, a booming voice shattered the silence, announcing the arrival of All Might, the symbol of peace. In a blur of speed and power, All Might engaged the sludge villain with a ferocity that defied belief. His punch echoed like thunder as he freed Izuku from the villain. Once the villain was captured, All Might approached Izuku with a gentle yet concerned expression, asking if he was all right. Izuku could barely find his voice, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had transpired. Izuku managed to express his gratitude to All Might, his sincerity evident. However, as All Might prepared to leave, Izuku's desperation surged. Without hesitation, he reached out and clung to All Might's arm. The pro-hero paused, surprised by Izuku's unexpected action, as they ascended into the sky. They landed on a quiet rooftop, the cityscape stretching out before them in a tapestry of lights and shadows. Izuku stood before All Might, his heart racing with a mix of awe and determination. This was his chance, the moment he had longed for, to ask the question that weighed heavily on his heart. He asked if someone without a quirk could be like All Might, expressing his longing to be a hero who saves others with a smile, even without powers. All Might stopped, feeling his strength waning as smoke enveloped him. Concern washed over Izuku as he witnessed the transformation into his weaker form. 𝗏𝗏 quickly explained the gravity of his situation, urging Izuku to keep it a secret to avoid chaos in society. Izuku solemnly agreed, his gaze unwavering, but pressed for an answer to his question about becoming a hero without powers. All Might's voice carried weight as he explained that heroes constantly risk their lives in a dangerous world. While he understood Izuku's longing to help, he also emphasized the need for realistic paths. Kai, observing the exchange, felt a mix of surprise and concern, aware of his father's struggles and the legacy of One for All. He quietly questioned his father's actions, feeling the weight of the moment. 𝗏𝗏 encouraged Izuku to dream but reminded him to be realistic. After All Might left, Izuku stood there, feeling shattered and grappling with conflicting emotions. The harsh words of Bakugo echoed in his mind, each syllable a reminder of his daily torment. Lost in thought, he barely noticed a newcomer until a voice broke the silence, asking if he was really going to jump. Startled, Izuku turned to see a young man sitting on the edge of the rooftop beside him. The young man chuckled gently, advising that jumping wouldn't solve anything. Izuku faltered, feeling despair wash over him as he explained his belief that without a quirk, he couldn't be a hero. Kai regarded him with understanding. He reassured Izuku that not having a quirk didn't mean he couldn't save people, suggesting that there were other ways to be a hero. Izuku frowned, uncertainty gnawing at him, recalling All Might's words. Kai's expression softened as he apologized for his father's current struggles. Izuku's eyes widened in realization as Kai introduced himself as Superman. Kai invited Izuku to step away from the edge and have a conversation. With gentle encouragement, Izuku took a step back, moving away from the precipice that had seemed like his only escape moments before. As they settled on the rooftop, the city hummed around them. Izuku hesitated, unsure of where to begin, but eventually admitted his lifelong dream of becoming a hero. He expressed his feelings of uselessness without a quirk and the hurt caused by Bakugo's harsh words. Kai listened attentively, affirming that being a hero wasn't solely about powers but also about courage, determination, and the willingness to help others. He encouraged Izuku to believe in himself and reminded him that the first step to becoming a hero was to never give up on his dreams. Izuku felt a glimmer of hope return as he thanked Kai for saving him and for giving him hope. Kai humbly noted that Izuku had chosen to step back from the edge. As their conversation continued, Kai emphasized the importance of training hard and studying diligently. With newfound determination, Izuku vowed that he wouldn't give up. Kai smiled and stood up, preparing to leave. As he walked through the bustling city, a sudden commotion caught his attention from a nearby alley. Without hesitation, he hurried toward the source of the disturbance, finding a sludge villain cornering a boy, using him as a shield against a group of heroes trying to intervene. Before Kai could act, he saw Izuku sprinting toward the scene, his eyes blazing with determination. Izuku shouted for help, his voice cutting through the tension. Kai's heart clenched with worry, but he remembered his father's words about heroes being made in moments like this. Just as the situation seemed dire, All Might and Kai, now in his Superman persona, arrived on the scene. Izuku felt relief wash over him as Superman swiftly assessed the situation. In a blur of motion, he rescued the trapped boy with ease and pulled Izuku away from danger. Meanwhile, All Might stepped forward, his legendary presence radiating determination as he reassured Izuku. With a powerful strike, All Might unleashed a blow that shattered the sludge villain's hold, dispersing it into harmless droplets. As the villain dissolved, the sun briefly peeked through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the scene. Izuku watched in awe as All Might's strength and Kai's swift action saved them. The crowd cheered for the heroes while Izuku felt the weight of disappointment, knowing he had been reprimanded while the blonde kid received congratulations for holding on during the crisis. Once the tumult subsided, they retreated to a nearby rooftop, observing as Izuku walked alone towards his home. 𝗏𝗏 remarked that he thought they had found Izuku, and Kai agreed, suggesting they should not keep him waiting. They called out to him, their voices echoing in the street. Izuku was visibly surprised by their sudden appearance, unsure how to react. His thoughts were interrupted as 𝗧𝗏 reverted to his weakened state. Concerned, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 asked if 𝗧𝗏 was okay. 𝗧𝗏 reassured him that he just needed to catch his breath. Kai playfully jabbed at his father, teasing him about getting old, to which 𝗧𝗏 responded with a grin. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's voice trembled with remorse as he expressed his regret for the villain's escape, believing that if he hadn't stopped to ask a question, things might have turned out differently. 𝗧𝗏's tone was firm yet compassionate as he assured 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 that none of this was his fault. He wanted to thank 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 and correct a mistake of his own. Intrigued, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 asked what he meant. 𝗧𝗏 explained that 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's bravery had inspired them to act when no one else could. He admitted that he had been living in fear due to his injury but acknowledged that it was no excuse to crush 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's dreams. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴, feeling the weight of the conversation, insisted that he had only gotten in the way. Kai interjected, reminding him that he had acted when others would not, trying to save someone despite the risks. 𝗧𝗏 finished the thought, explaining that many top heroes had similar experiences. He expressed that he had been wrong about 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 and believed he could become a hero, promising to help him achieve that. Overwhelmed with emotion, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 sank to his knees, tears streaming down his cheeks. Kai approached and patted him on the back. All Might then asked 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 if he knew what his quirk was. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 looked up, curiosity replacing his tears. He admitted that while everyone knew All Might was super strong and fast, he didn't know the exact name or how it worked. All Might explained that his power was not just a quirk he was born with, it was called One for All. Intrigued, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 asked what that meant. 𝗧𝗏 elaborated that One for All was a quirk that could be transferred from one person to another, accumulating power over time and growing stronger with each new user. He revealed that it had been passed down to him, and now he intended to pass it on to 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's eyes widened in disbelief as he processed the offer. He questioned why he, a quirkless individual, would receive such a powerful quirk. 𝗧𝗏 gently explained that One for All was not just about raw power, it was about the heart of the person who wielded it. He recognized 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's qualities as a true hero, his courage, selflessness, and unwavering determination, making him the perfect candidate. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's mind raced, struggling to comprehend the enormity of what was being offered. He wondered why not give it to someone like Kai, who was already strong. Kai chuckled softly, shaking his head, assuring 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 that he didn't need One for All, as his own powers were more than sufficient. Grateful, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 promised to work harder than ever, vowing to train and become a hero worthy of One for All. 𝗧𝗏 placed a hand on 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's shoulder, pride shining in his gaze as he expressed his belief in 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's potential. They began to plan for 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's training, which would be rigorous but necessary. 6 months passed since that pivotal conversation, and it became clear that they had made the right choice. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 underwent a training regimen dubbed the American Dream Plan, designed to enhance his strength in preparation for One for All. During this time, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 grew closer to 𝗧𝗏 and Kai, who eventually shared details about his past. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's dedication was unwavering, and after 8 months, he finally received One for All. His training had paid off. He could now use 5% of the power without injuring himself. Kai played a crucial role in helping 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 gain confidence and improve his social skills, employing techniques that had once helped him. As the 10-month training period drew to a close, it was time for 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 to take the entrance exam for high school. Kai and All Might stood with him at the gates, offering last-minute encouragement. They reminded him of the hard work he had put in and urged him to believe in himself. Taking a deep breath, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 felt a mix of excitement and nerves as he thanked them, promising not to let them down. He left to prepare for the entrance exam, leaving father and son alone. Kai asked if 𝗧𝗏 was ready to return to their old school, and 𝗧𝗏 replied that it would bring back memories. As they walked towards high school, 𝗧𝗏 broke the comfortable silence, gently inquiring if Kai had continued his search for his old family. Kai reflected that he had stopped looking 2 months ago, having hit a dead end. He accepted that he might never know who his family was before the experiments, but he was okay with that. 𝗧𝗏 paused, considering his son's words, and asked what he would do if he found them. Kai expressed his identity with conviction, stating that he was 𝗧𝗏 Yagi's son. He added that if he did find his family, he would still try to build a bond with them, recognizing the importance of knowing where he came from while also valuing who he was now and the family he had. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's eyes softened with pride and affection as he acknowledged Kai's growth into a remarkable young man. Kai chuckled, feeling a bit embarrassed by the praise. "Thanks, Dad." An hour later, the Yagi family stood with the professors of 𝐻𝐿 High School, eagerly awaiting the start of the entrance exams. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement and anticipation as students and teachers prepared for the day's events. Before long, they were greeted by Principal 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲, a small but highly intelligent creature who served as the head of the school. His eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as he welcomed all might and Superman. Kai responded warmly, shaking 𝐒𝐮𝐻's paw. As 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 conversed with the principal, Kai's attention was drawn to a familiar yellow sleeping bag lying on the ground nearby. He called out in surprise, recognizing his former teacher. From the yellow sleeping bag emerged a tired-looking man with messy hair and a perpetually sleepy expression. It was none other than 𝗀𝗱𝐿𝐻𝐿, also known as Eraserhead. 𝐒𝐿𝐻 remarked with mock annoyance that he thought he would never see Kai there again. He reminded Kai to call him Eraserhead, noting that they were equals now. Kai chuckled, a grin spreading across his face, and acknowledged that old habits die hard. 𝗂𝐿𝐻 smirked, though his tired eyes held a hint of warmth as he expressed that it was good to have Kai back, even if it meant dealing with his antics again. An arm hugged Kai from behind. Present Mike chimed in, playfully teasing 𝗂𝐻𝐿 about missing Kai. He mentioned how grumpy 𝗂𝐻𝐿 had been last year due to the lack of students with the same potential as Kai and his classmates. 𝗂𝐻𝐿 retorted, telling Mike to focus on presenting the exam. Mike then left to fulfill his duties. 𝗂𝐻𝐿 acknowledged Kai's near success in the previous year's exams, and Kai thanked him with a bow. Principal 𝐒𝐮𝐻 announced that the practical exam was about to begin, urging everyone to take their places. Namuri commented on her excitement to see the new generation, while Vlad King expressed hope that they were ready for the challenges of the hero course. As everyone focused on the new hero prospects, Kai's attention was drawn to a green-haired boy named 𝗍𝐿𝐻. Nervous and nearly failing at the entrance, 𝗍𝐿𝐻's determination was palpable, and many underestimated him as an easy rival to beat. 𝗍𝐿𝐻 reminded himself to remember what he had learned and to give it everything he had. He thought about the task ahead, which involved destroying robots, and reassured himself that it wouldn't be as difficult as facing Kai. He noticed a nervous girl who had helped him earlier and wanted to thank her, but was interrupted by a tall guy with glasses who warned him not to interfere with the other exams. The doors of the mock city suddenly opened, catching all the students off guard. Present Mike announced that there was no countdown for a fight and urged the students to run if they wanted to pass. The students burst into action, sprinting towards the mock city. Kai and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 watched from their designated observation area, closely following 𝗍𝐿𝐻 as the exam began. All the participants started running towards the city. 𝗍𝐿𝐻 quickly followed, activating his quirk in his legs and leaping ahead, leaving others behind. He reminded himself to stay calm and in control, recalling Kai's advice about his disadvantages. A memory of Kai's words echoed in his mind, emphasizing that while other kids had been using their quirks since they were 4, he had only had a month to prepare. But he also had one for all. 𝗍𝐿𝐻 activated one for all in his right arm, green lightning crackling around it as he focused on the task at hand. With determination, he leaped towards a 2-point robot. As he approached the robot, he recalled Kai's words about the power he possessed. He connected his fist with precision to the center of the robot, causing it to shatter into pieces. Filled with a surge of confidence, 𝗍𝐻 affirmed to himself that he could do this. With their training, there was nothing he couldn't accomplish as he propelled himself towards another 1-point robot. Meanwhile, the teachers, along with Kai, observed the participants on numerous screens across the room. 𝗍𝐻 explained that the students were not informed about the number of fake villains or their locations. In a large area like that, their only option was to flush the villains out of hiding. They spotted a student with multiple arms on a rooftop, gathering information before others. 𝗍𝐻 noted the strategic move, and then another image appeared on the screen. Kai recognized the student with turbines in his legs as 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's little brother. Next, they saw the blonde kid they had saved. Alongside 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 remarked on the importance of their abilities for maintaining peace on the streets. Kai chuckled, commenting that the exam hadn't changed a bit. Nemuri teased him, reminding him that he still held the record. Surprised, Kai learned that he had scored 120 points, the highest score in the last 4 years. 𝗂𝐾toplasm added that not many could take down the zero-pointer, recalling Kai's impressive feat. Kai laughed nervously, feeling flattered. Nizu then requested Vlad to initiate the real trial for the students. Vlad King pressed a button that set the entire city trembling. Izuku recognized the ominous signs and thought to himself that it could only mean one thing: the zero-pointer was about to appear. Soon after, a massive robot emerged from a building. Panic surged through Izuku as the giant robot slammed its fist on the ground, creating a tremor that terrified many of the kids. As it began to advance, fear gripped the hearts of the participants. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 remarked that an overwhelming threat reveals people's true nature. Aizawa noticed Kai's expression and asked if he was having memories of his own experiences. Kai replied that if Aizawa was referring to how he had made a hole in one of those robots with a single punch, then yes. However, he admitted that watching it from their vantage point was not a pleasant sight. As the robot attacked again, causing chaos in the city, Izuku felt a surge of panic. Izuku felt the urgency to leave the area, believing he had accumulated enough points. Suddenly, a cry for help pierced through the chaos, drawing his attention to the girl who had aided him earlier. She was trapped beneath rubble, and a menacing robot was advancing toward her. Her words echoed in his mind, igniting a spark of determination within him. Without a moment's hesitation, he dashed toward her, a fierce resolve forming in his heart. He knew that using just 5% of his power wouldn't be enough to stop the approaching threat. He muttered to himself, recalling the advice of his mentors. He remembered Toshi's warning about the potential consequences of using all his strength and Kai's encouragement to unleash his full power only as a last resort. He steeled himself, recalling the mantra to shout from the depths of his being. Surrounded by a surge of green lightning, Izuku propelled himself toward the towering robot, determination etched on his face. With a powerful strike, he shouted as his fist collided with the robot's head, causing it to topple backward. As the dust settled, Kai couldn't help but smile, filled with pride. Toshi added that the spirit of self-sacrifice was the most important trait of a hero. However, concern flickered in Midnight's eyes as she worried about who would catch Izuku as he fell toward the ground. Fortunately, the girl he had saved rushed forward, catching him just in time. Relief washed over him as he looked up at her, gratitude shining in his eyes. Kai sighed in relief, while Toshi winced, knowing Recovery Girl would not be pleased. After Recovery Girl tended to Izuku, who was still shaken from the ordeal, he headed home. He attempted to reach out to All Might but received no response. Even Kai seemed busy, only mentioning that they would contact him when they were free. Days passed without any word, leaving Izuku increasingly anxious. Then, a letter arrived. He hurried to his room, tearing open the envelope to reveal a holographic projection of All Might. The projection caught him off guard as All Might began to speak. He explained that they had been busy with paperwork, which was why they hadn't contacted him sooner. However, he had good news. Izuku had passed the written exam and scored 30 points in the practical exam. But there was more to it. All Might played a video featuring the girl he had saved. In the video, she addressed the camera, asking if she could share some of her points with him since he had lost time trying to save her. Her heartfelt plea resonated deeply, and All Might continued by explaining that Izuku's actions had inspired others. The exam wasn't solely about villain points. There were also rescue points awarded by a panel of judges for acts of heroism. Izuku learned that he had received 60 rescue points, bringing his total to 90 points, making him the highest scorer in the exam. Overwhelmed with emotion, he couldn't hold back his tears, feeling a mix of disbelief and gratitude. A few hours later, Izuku received a message from All Might, instructing him to meet at the beach where they had trained before. Upon arrival, he found Kai and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 waiting for him. Excitement bubbled within him as he ran toward the two pro heroes. Kai greeted him with a smile, and as they exchanged high fives, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 ruffled Izuku's hair affectionately. Toshi congratulated him on passing, while Kai expressed pride in his performance, noting that he had almost beaten his score. Izuku thanked them, feeling grateful. Toshi reassured him that the school was unaware of their connection, ensuring that his acceptance was fair. Relieved, Izuku was surprised to learn that Toshi would be teaching at UA. Toshi explained that he had come to find a successor at UA and believed he had made a good choice in Izuku. However, Izuku admitted his struggle with controlling his power, having broken both his legs and right arm in the process. Toshi reassured him that mishaps were a part of learning, just as one would expect when trying to master a new trick. Kai added that as Izuku's body grew stronger, his percentage of power would increase, allowing him to use his full strength sooner than he thought. Izuku vowed to do his best and inquired if Kai would also be working at UA. Kai explained that he would be more of an assistant, helping guide the new generation, partly to repay a favor to Nizu. Suddenly, Toshinori transformed into his all-might form, striking a heroic pose. He confidently declared that with both of them there to support him, Izuku would become the best in no time. Just then, a voice called out, recognizing All Might. Kai cursed under his breath as he glanced at his father and Izuku. Toshi urged them to run, and as they fled from the crowd, All Might smiled at the two of them. He felt proud of Kai, who had grown into a great hero, and he was confident that he would inspire the new generation, carrying on his legacy. As for Izuku, now that he had received the one for all power, even though it was small for now, All Might knew that with time, it would grow stronger and brighter. When that day arrived, he felt assured that his duty would be fulfilled, allowing him to finally rest. The future is in capable hands. The next day, Izuku prepared for school, adjusting his new uniform while his mother watched him with a mix of emotions. He asked her if she had his handkerchief, his voice tinged with urgency. Inko interrupted him before he could leave, stopping him in his tracks. As he turned to look at her, he noticed her eyes glistening with tears, but a proud smile graced her face. She expressed how cool he was, her voice filled with emotion. Izuku smiled back, feeling a surge of warmth in his heart as he headed out the door, ready to face whatever challenges awaited him at school. His heart raced as he dashed toward the train station, excitement palpable. He thought about how this was the start of his high school career, a wide smile stretching across his face. He felt immense gratitude for the opportunity to attend UA High School, a dream he had cherished for years. As he hurried along, he reflected on the rigorous selection process for UA's hero course, where the acceptance rate was notoriously low. Only 4 students were admitted through recommendation, while the rest were determined by the regular entrance exam. From these, 2 recommended students and 18 from the regular exam made up each class, including his coveted Class 1A. As he navigated through the labyrinthine corridors of UA, he muttered to himself about how huge the place was. Finally, he arrived at the door of his classroom, clearly marked 1A. Stepping inside, his gaze swept over the expansive interior, taking in the towering ceilings and spacious layout. He murmured to himself about how impressive the room was, almost as if it were designed for students with gigantification quirks. Despite the grandeur of his surroundings, Izuku's mind remained focused on the challenges ahead. He knew that his top placement in the entrance exam was just the beginning of his journey at UA High School. Each of his classmates possessed unique talents and ambitions, all striving for a coveted place in the prestigious hero course. He reminded himself that ranking first didn't mean he was better than anyone else. He would have to prove himself every step of the way. However, his thoughts were abruptly interrupted as he noticed 2 figures he had hoped to avoid. One voice chastised firmly, urging someone to put their feet down off the desk. Bakugo responded defiantly, dismissing the concern. The voice clarified itself as 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐴, who introduced himself. Bakugo sneered, expressing his intention to crush Ida. Izuku sighed internally, cursing his luck at encountering them so soon. Another voice then drew attention to him, exclaiming that he was amazing in the exam for destroying a robot with 1 punch. The speaker introduced herself as Ochako Uraraka and expressed her hope that they could become friends. The next day dawned, and Class 1A slipped back into the familiar rhythm of their academic routine. The morning PRD commenced with staple subjects, English, math, and history, all orchestrated under the guidance of Present Mike. He ignited the classroom with his characteristic energy, initiating the lesson with enthusiasm. The students engaged in the lesson, their minds buzzing with the challenge posed by Present Mike's exercises. In the afternoon, the curriculum transitioned into hero training, where the true essence of their education lay. All Might announced his entrance with excitement, eliciting a wave of enthusiasm among the students. Kai couldn't help but sweat drop at the spectacle, wondering how this was considered normal. Kaminari echoed the excitement, confirming that All Might would be their instructor. Kirishima and Mina added to the buzz, expressing their thrill at having the number one hero and his son teaching them. Amidst the chatter, All Might took charge, exuding his trademark confidence. He instructed everyone to settle down, explaining that he would lead them through the basics of heroism, starting with combat training. Kai stepped forward, holding out a row of suitcases and announcing that they would need them. With a press of a button, suitcases emerged from the wall, each labeled with a number. All Might instructed the students to grab their gear and meet at Ground Beta. As they assembled at Ground Beta, Kai looked at his father with a confident smile, ready for the training. All Might flashed a grin and complimented the students on their appearance, urging them to get started. Kai couldn't resist a mental chuckle at the reference to Gran Torino. Before the exercise began, he noticed Izuku's suit and recalled when Izuku approached him for advice. He remembered what Melissa had told him about gadgets and hero instruments. Izuku's nervousness around girls was evident when Uraraka approached him, turning him into a bundle of nerves. All Might prepared to commence the exercise, but Ida interjected with a question about the nature of the training. All Might clarified that they would be focusing on indoor scenarios, as intelligent villains often operated in confined spaces. Kai added that they needed to be prepared for hostage situations and clandestine meetings. All Might explained that the exercise would divide them into two groups, heroes and villains. The heroes would engage in battles inside a building, with the villains hiding a nuclear weapon within. The hero's task would be to apprehend the villains and secure the bomb. Kai mentioned that the teams would be chosen randomly. As the teams were drawn, he couldn't help but feel sorry for Izuku, whose luck seemed to have taken a turn for the worse. As he found himself paired against his bully, who seemed particularly angry, Kai quietly expressed his unease about the situation. All Might issued final instructions, stating that the villain team would enter first to prepare, followed by the hero team in 5 minutes. He encouraged Bakugo and Lita to think like villains and give it their all. Kai turned to Uraraka and Izuku, offering words of encouragement. He urged them to remember that teamwork was often the key to victory, giving them a thumbs up as they prepared to depart. From the monitor room, the rest of the class and the teachers observed their movements. Kai voiced his concern, stating that he didn't like that Izuku was facing Bakugo right now, feeling that he wasn't ready. All Might acknowledge the truth in Kai's words, reminding him that life wouldn't wait for anyone to be ready. Kai sighed, expressing his seriousness about stopping the fight if it went too far. Meanwhile, Ochako shared her worries about memorizing the plan, relieved that All Might wouldn't punish them like Aizawa would. She noticed Izuku trembling and asked if he was okay. Izuku took a deep breath and explained that they were about to fight Bakugo and Lita, emphasizing the need for caution. Ochako sympathized with Izuku, recalling how Bakugo had been mean to him. Izuku reflected on their past friendship, admitting that Bakugo had changed and caused him a lot of trouble growing up. With determination, he declared that he wouldn't lose to Bakugo again. Ochako smiled, recognizing that this was now a battle between rivals. Izuku apologized for dragging her into it, but she reassured him that they were a team. As the exercise commenced, Izuku and Uraraka entered the dimly lit building, the tension palpable as they ventured deeper into the shadowy corridors. Suddenly, the silence was broken by Bakugo's swift attack. With lightning speed, he lunged at them, but Izuku quickly maneuvered himself and Uraraka out of harm's way, his reflexes sharp from extensive training. In the monitor room, only Kai and All Might could hear the words exchanged between Izuku and Bakugo. Bakugo's voice boomed with rage as he threatened Izuku, declaring that he would hit him so hard that they would have to stop the fight. With fierce determination, Bakugo charged at Izuku, who remained steadfast and focused. As Bakugo's fist closed in, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 skillfully seized his arm, using his opponent's momentum to twist and propel 𝗫𝐿 to the ground, leaving everyone momentarily stunned by the unexpected turn of events. All Might looked surprised at 𝗍𝐿's movements and turned to Kai, asking if he had taught him that. To All Might's surprise, Kai shook his head, indicating that he hadn't. Meanwhile, 𝗍𝐿 faced the recovering 𝗫𝐿, his resolve unwavering despite the chaos. He declared that the name Deku no longer held meaning for him, thanks to the support of many people. With a surge of determination, he activated One for All in his right arm, the green energy crackling with power. He proclaimed that he was not Deku, but 𝗬𝐻𝐼RU, the hero who could do it, preparing for the incoming attack. 𝗫𝐿 scoffed, retorting with malice that 𝗍𝐿 shouldn't get ahead of himself. As the confrontation unfolded, Kirishima's curiosity led him to ask what 𝗫𝐿 was saying. Kai explained that they were communicating with their companions through the radio, while All Might informed the class that it was one of the many tools they would receive when it was their turn. Amidst the chaos, Ishido expressed concern about the heroes' apparent disadvantage, noting that they had limited time and didn't know where the bomb was. Kai agreed, emphasizing that heroes must be able to turn any situation to their advantage. All Might rallied the class with a resounding cry of "Plus Ultra," and the students echoed it, their spirits lifted. As attention returned to the confrontation, 𝗫𝐿 launched himself at 𝗍𝐿 again, his attacks relentless. 𝗍𝐿 blocked 𝗫𝐿's kick and dodged his punches, countering with a direct jab to 𝗫𝐿's stomach. Sato admired 𝗍𝐿's movements, while Kirishima remarked on how awesome he was. Shiro noted that 𝗍𝐿 hadn't even used his quirk yet and was still holding his own against 𝗫𝐿, the second best of the exam. Kai watched the exchange with pride, analyzing 𝗍𝐿's tactics. He mused about how well 𝗍𝐿 reacted in a crisis and how his knowledge from studying heroes had paid off. As tension crackled between 𝗍𝐿 and 𝗫𝐿, their gazes locked in a silent battle of wills. 𝗫𝐿 demanded that 𝗍𝐿 stop dodging and fight him. In response, 𝗍𝐿 turned to Uraraka, instructing her to find the bomb while he kept 𝗫𝐿 busy. Ochako hesitated but was reassured by 𝗍𝐿's determined smile. She agreed to be careful and hurried off to fulfill her mission. Seeing this, 𝗍𝐿 activated his quirk, green lightning enveloping his arms as he assumed a fighting stance. He reminded himself to stay calm, knowing that losing control could put everyone in danger. He needed to buy time for Uraraka to find the bomb and then find a way to help her. Together, they would win. But first, 𝗍𝐿 decided to show 𝗫𝐿 what he was capable of now. 𝗫𝐿's taunts only fueled 𝗍𝐿's resolve, his determination unwavering as he prepared to face his former friend once again. 𝗫𝐿 threatened that he would make 𝗍𝐿 wish he had run away, his voice filled with malice. Undeterred, 𝗍𝐿 met 𝗫𝐿's onslaught head-on, his movements precise and calculated. Dodging 𝗫𝐿's attacks with practiced ease, he seized an opening and delivered a powerful punch to 𝗫𝐿's stomach, sending him crashing into a nearby wall. 𝗍𝐿 declared that he would not be intimidated by 𝗫𝐿 again, his voice ringing with defiance. Enraged, 𝗫𝐿 lashed out, his fists clenched in fury as he unleashed a torrent of accusations. He roared about how 𝗍𝐿 had made him look foolish for years. 𝗍𝐿's expression hardened. For the first time in years, he felt anger towards someone and was ready to express it. He retorted that he hadn't lied back then, stating that 𝗫𝐿 was the one who had made fun of him and turned his life into a nightmare. 𝗍𝐿 had needed his best friend to help him through tough times, not to abandon him. Before 𝗍𝐿 could continue, a crackle erupted over the radio, interrupting their tense standoff. Ochako informed him that she had found the bomb but that Lita had found her. 𝗍𝐿 quickly formulated a plan, realizing they were just above them and that time was running out. As he strategized, his attention was abruptly drawn to a noise from 𝗫𝐿's gauntlets. 𝗫𝐿 taunted him, revealing that the gauntlets contained nitroglycerin. In the monitoring room, Kai sprang into action, seizing the microphone to warn 𝗫𝐿 not to use them, fearing for 𝗍𝐿's safety. However, 𝗫𝐿 disregarded the warning and pulled the trigger, causing an explosion that engulfed the room in chaos. 𝗍𝐿 barely managed to evade the impact, his heart pounding as he struggled to catch his breath amidst the turmoil. He questioned whether such actions were even allowed, while Bakugo gloated about his triumph and asked if Izuku was ready to continue. All Might's voice echoed through the building, warning Bakugo that he would lose the exercise if he continued down this path. Taking this into account, Izuku knew Bakugo wouldn't risk losing, as it would hurt his pride even more. He communicated with his teammate via radio, urging Ochako to be ready. Izuku readied his right arm to launch an attack, but Bakugo was quick to react, evading Izuku's fist and retaliating with a fierce explosion that sent Izuku reeling. Before he could regain his bearings, Bakugo delivered a devastating hook to his chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Izuku realized he needed to think of something quickly, struggling to formulate a counter-strategy. In the monitoring room, Kai and his father were engaged in a tense exchange, grappling with the mounting tension unfolding on the screen. Kai urged his father to intervene, expressing concern for Izuku's safety. All Might countered that stepping in prematurely could worsen the situation, though he acknowledged the gravity of the moment. As they watched, Izuku and Bakugo charged their most powerful attacks, both aware of the catastrophic implications if Izuku unleashed 100% of his power. All Might conceded that Kai was right, but his acknowledgement was met with the disheartening realization that his son was nowhere to be seen. They turned back to the screen just in time to witness Izuku and Bakugo on the brink of collapse. Suddenly, Izuku called out to Ochako, urging her to be prepared as he faced Bakugo head-on. In a surprising turn, Izuku altered the trajectory of his attack, directing it towards the ceiling. The force unleashed shattered through multiple floors of the building, creating chaos and granting Ochako the opportunity to secure the bomb. She triumphantly exclaimed that she had got it. As 𝐴𝐵 mourned his defeat, Bakugo's fury remained unyielding. He moved to strike the injured Izuku, but before he could unleash another explosion, he hit something solid. Once the smoke cleared, Kai stood in front of him, unfazed. Bakugo stammered in surprise as Kai glared at him. He firmly stated that it was enough and reprimanded Bakugo for attacking a classmate out of rage after the exercise had ended. Bakugo felt a mix of anger and shame as Kai insisted he return while he took Izuku to the infirmary. Kai's frustration simmered as he stood by Izuku's bedside in the infirmary. Izuku weakly apologized for disappointing him, explaining that it was the only plan he could think of. Kai murmured that it had been a risky plan given the circumstances, expressing his concern for Izuku's safety. He felt frustrated that Izuku could have been seriously hurt, or worse, and that it would have been on him. But as he continued, he noticed that Izuku had fallen asleep, the toll of their recent battle having made him lose consciousness. Kai sighed softly, brushing a strand of hair from Izuku's forehead, promising to continue their conversation later. As the class came to an end, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 entered the infirmary, worry etched into his features. He inquired about Izuku's condition, to which Kai replied that he could be better, his tone revealing his anger towards his father. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 attempted to offer an explanation, but Kai's anger boiled over as he interjected sharply, demanding to know what 𝗏𝗏𝗏 had expected by sending Izuku to face his bully, a boy with a dangerous edge and a troubled mind. 𝗏𝗏𝗏's expression faltered under Kai's glare, realizing the weight of his decisions. He admitted that he thought it might help his friend grow, his voice tinged with regret. Kai shot back, his anger intensifying as he pointed out that his friend was still mastering his quirk. Unlike him, Izuku's body wasn't as quick to adapt. Kai had advanced quickly because his body accepted one for all, and he had been modified to learn rapidly. But Izuku needed guidance, not to be thrown into combat situations on his second day of high school. As his eyes turned red, he quickly shut them, trying to regain his composure. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 approached, attempting to get close to his son, but Kai stopped him, taking a deep breath to calm himself as his eyes returned to their original color. He conceded that 𝗏𝗏𝗏 was right and apologized. Kai's expression softened as he sighed wearily, stating that he wasn't the one owed an apology. He urged his father to do better, reminding him that Grandpa Torino would be furious if anything happened to Izuku. He glanced at Izuku, who was resting in the infirmary. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 asked what Kai thought of Izuku during his fight. Kai smiled and said that Izuku did the best he could, and that was all he could ask for. The second day of Izuku Midoriya as a hero was going well. He had found friends and was determined to show that he wouldn't let anyone tell him he was useless. After waking up, he tried to talk to 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽, but 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 dismissed him, declaring that he was just getting started and would defeat 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 and everyone else in class. As 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 left the UA gate, 𝐾𝐮 landed beside 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. He mentioned that 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 had tried to tell 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 about one for all. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's eyes widened in surprise, asking how 𝐾𝐮 knew. 𝐾𝐮 chuckled softly, reminding him of his super senses. More importantly, he noticed how 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐽 looked at 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽, suggesting that he wanted to rebuild their friendship. 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 sighed, looking down at his feet, expressing his wish for things to return to how they were when they were kids. 𝐾𝐮 placed a reassuring hand on 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽's shoulder, explaining that sometimes both sides need to grow to rebuild a relationship. He advised 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 not to force it or rush it, as 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 had things to learn on his own. 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 nodded slowly, taking in 𝐾𝐮's words and hoping 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 would come around eventually. 𝐾𝐮 encouraged him to focus on his own growth, assuring him that in time, 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 might see things differently. For now, he needed to keep moving forward, for himself and for those who believed in him. The news of 𝐾𝐮 and his father becoming teachers at UA quickly spread, capturing the attention of eager newspaper editors and journalists who sought interviews with the symbol of peace and the man of steel. 𝐾𝐮 found himself move into the role of mediator, attempting to navigate the onslaught of press. He calmly requested that they respect the students' learning environment and leave, promising to arrange an interview once the day concluded. However, the reporters were relentless, firing off questions in rapid succession, demanding to see all might. 𝐾𝐮's patience began to wane as he explained that his father wasn't present and that he had work to do. The reporters remained undeterred, insisting they wouldn't leave without an interview. Realizing diplomacy had reached its limits, 𝐾𝐮 remarked tersely that it was tough luck. As one reporter attempted to enter UA, the security system activated, leaving them behind. Finally free from the reporters, 𝐾𝐮 exhaled in relief. Dealing with them had become an all-too-familiar chore. Though he didn't enjoy the attention, he felt he was simply doing the right thing by helping others, and he saw no reason for the compensation he received. 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 approached 𝐾𝐮 with a knowing glance, commenting on his apparent dislike for reporters, much like his father. 𝐾𝐮 chuckled weakly, still feeling the tension of the encounter, admitting that he didn't know how his father managed them and felt they often exaggerated things. 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐽 nodded in understanding, noting that 𝐾𝐮 was one of their favorite topics, regardless of how much he tried to evade them. 𝐾𝐮 conceded that being the son of the symbol of peace had its disadvantages. He had appeared out of nowhere, and due to his powers and strength, no one questioned his lineage, but the constant inquiries about his mother and other personal matters arose in every interview, prompting him to avoid them. 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐽 approved of 𝐾𝐮's rationale and suggested they not waste any more time as they headed toward the classroom. 𝐾𝐮 fell into step beside his mentor, grateful to move on from the encounter. Upon arriving at the classroom, 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐽 began by addressing 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽, acknowledging his talent but emphasizing that talent alone wouldn't suffice if he continued to act impulsively. It was time for him to start thinking like a hero, not a hot-headed kid. 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 responded with a clipped nod, revealing the simmering frustration beneath his stoic facade. 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐽 then turned to 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽, softening his tone but remaining stern. He reminded 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 that he still had a long way to go in mastering his quirk. His lack of control was a liability, holding him back from reaching his full potential. 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽 responded immediately, affirming his understanding with determination. 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐽 then announced that the class would be selecting a class representative, causing the students to sigh in relief at the normalcy of the activity. As they began to murmur amongst themselves, 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐽 excused 𝐾𝐮 before retreating into his sleeping bag. 𝐾𝐮 nodded, telling 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐽 to call him if he was needed. Stepping into the corridor, 𝐾𝐮 walked through the hallways of the school, reminiscing about his years as a student at UA. He entered his office, courtesy of 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽, and was drawn to a large board on one of the walls. It was covered with numerous clippings, photographs, and handwritten notes, all connected by a web of red string. The board depicted the story of his life, from the day he was abducted by a rogue scientist who experimented on him to his first public appearance as 𝐒𝐮𝐽𝐽's son. The pictures and articles painted a grim picture, one that few knew in its entirety. 𝐾𝐮 stared at the board, his fingers tracing the string connecting the various pieces of his past. He muttered to himself that it was really a dead end, feeling frustrated that no matter where he looked, he never arrived at the answers he sought. His eyes scanned the various headlines that had followed him throughout his life. Superman, the new All Might. Who is the mother of the Man of Steel? Superman's quirk, how many powers does he have? Each article, each picture, each note served as a reminder of the questions surrounding him, questions that even he didn't have all the answers to. Moving to another section of the dashboard, he found a stark contrast to the grim board he had just been studying. This section was filled with pictures of happier times, moments that reminded him of the support he had received since waking up from that capsule. One picture showed him with his dad, All Might, taken on the day of his debut. Both were smiling broadly, All Might's massive hand resting on Kai's shoulder, pride shining in his eyes. The memory brought a small smile to Kai's face. Another picture depicted him with Melissa Shield in her lab at the I-Island Academy. She held up a new piece of tech she had designed, her face alight with excitement, while Kai looked on with admiration. It was a photo of him with his friends Arya and Hiroshi, standing together in front of Yue, arms around each other's shoulders, laughing. Arya and Hiroshi had been his closest friends since his days as a student. There was even a picture of him with Sir Night Eye, taken during one of their training sessions. Night Eye's stern expression contrasted with the proud glint in his eyes. Kai's expression softened as he looked at these images. They were a stark contrast to the grim reminders of his past, representing the life he had built, the people who cared for him, and the support system that kept him going. At least he had this, he thought, a small smile tugging at his lips. Even if he never found all the answers, he had people who believed in him, and that counted for something. Just then, a voice from the doorway interrupted his thoughts. Principal Nizu stood there, his small form dwarfed by the entrance. Kai was surprised to see him. Nizu smiled and asked him how he was feeling about being a teacher, noting that he saw Kai was still collecting information to gain clues about who he was before. Meanwhile, Izuku was breathing heavily after Tsuyu rescued him from a shark villain. They stood on a boat in the shipwreck section of the facility, and he turned to see where Kai and the monstrous creature continued to fight, shockwaves still visible from their battle. Kai unleashed a barrage of super-speed punches, connecting with only a few before the 𝐻𝐿 retaliated, its massive fist striking Kai's jaw and sending him crashing into a nearby structure. The force of the blow shattered the concrete, and debris rained down around him. Emerging from the rubble with determination, BLD trickled from a cut above his eye, but he refused to waver. Frustration bubbled within him as he muttered that this creature just wouldn't stay down. He rocketed back toward the 𝐻𝐿, eyes glowing with fierce determination. Aiming a powerful uppercut, he lifted the creature off its feet, sending it soaring into the sky. Following in an instant, his speed blurred his form as he ascended. At the peak of their ascent, Kai delivered a devastating blow, sending the 𝐻𝐿 hurtling back to the ground with a thunderous impact. A massive crater formed, and for a moment, it seemed like the 𝐻𝐿 might be down for good. But as the dust settled, the 𝐻𝐿 rose once more, its body regenerating at an incredible pace. Kai landed beside the crater, breathing heavily, frustration etched on his face as he joined Aizawa, who appeared tired himself. This isn't working, Kai thought, his mind racing. He needed to find a way to neutralize the creature's regenerative ability. Aizawa asked if he was tired, to which Kai replied that while the creature could hurt him, his body wouldn't give in unless he used all his solar energy, which had never happened before. Their conversation was interrupted by laughter as they turned to face the villain, Shigaraki, who had hands all around his body. He taunted them about having problems with their final boss and charged toward the two heroes with alarming speed. Kai prepared to intercept him, but the 𝐻𝐿 once again blocked his path. Aizawa swiftly moved toward Shigaraki, aiming a strike with his elbow, but the villain effortlessly caught the blow. Impressed, Shigaraki remarked on Aizawa's skills but noted that he seemed to be tiring. As he activated his quirk, Aizawa gritted his teeth, feeling a sharp pain shoot through his elbow. His quirk deactivated involuntarily, and he recoiled as his skin began to peel away. Concerned, Kai shouted for Aizawa as he threw the 𝐻𝐿 toward the other villain. 𝐴𝐬𝐴 warned him to be careful, explaining that Shigaraki's quirk could disintegrate anything he touched. Kai nodded, realizing the situation was getting more complicated as the villains 𝐴𝐬𝐴 had knocked down were starting to rise again. Shigaraki laughed, mockingly telling them they didn't have much time left. Kai clenched his fists at the villain's words as 𝐴𝐬𝐴 placed a hand on his shoulder, urging him to let go of his restraints. He encouraged Kai to use all his power, not to worry about anything else. Just then, Izuku's voice gained their attention, but it also caught the villain's notice. Shigaraki's twisted grin widened as he locked eyes with Izuku, Tsuyu, and Mineta, commanding the 𝐴𝐴 to kill them. The monstrous creature obeyed immediately, charging toward the trio with lethal intent. Izuku turned to see the 𝐴𝐴 appear in front of them, and as the three students closed their eyes in fear, the impact never arrived. In front of them, Kai grappled with the 𝐴𝐴's arm using both hands. However, the 𝐴𝐴 retaliated with its other fist, sending Kai hurtling toward the lake. The creature then turned its attention to the students, but 𝐴𝐬𝐴 intervened with his capture gear. The 𝐴𝐴 seized the tape and yanked the pro hero toward it, slamming 𝐴𝐬𝐴's head into the ground once he was close enough. The students gasped in horror at the sight. Kai got up and charged at the 𝐴𝐴, pushing it away from his injured teacher, whose face was marred by a wound near his eye. Soon, the other villains began to rise as Kai cursed the situation. The 𝐴𝐴 was already a significant threat, and now he had to protect his injured companion while ensuring the safety of the students, making things even more complicated. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed at the entrance of the facilities. As a figure emerged from the smoke created by the destruction of the door, Kai smiled, recognizing his father. He remarked that his father always arrived late, and the sight of him filled the students with hope. All Might reassured them that they didn't have to worry anymore, his usual smile replaced by a serious expression. He declared that he was there to help. The #1 hero descended upon the scene. With lightning speed, he knocked Shigaraki back and swiftly rescued the students and 𝐴𝐬𝐴 from harm's way, taking down several villains in the process. All Might expressed frustration at being late as he noticed Eraserhead's injuries. Kai reassured him that his presence was what mattered most, tearing his cape from his costume to prepare for battle. All Might asked what they were facing, and Kai explained the villain's abilities, pointing out the one with hands that could decay everything he touched, the one with purple mist that could teleport, and emphasizing that the 𝐴𝐴 was the true problem. All Might, noticing the BLD on Kai's forehead, was taken aback. Kai explained that the 𝐴𝐴 could absorb attacks and regenerate, showing no signs of pain or consciousness. All Might's expression hardened as he processed the information and instructed the students to take 𝐴𝐬𝐴 and head to the exit while he and Kai handled the situation. Izuku protested, worried about their chances against the villain, but Kai reassured him with a smile, emphasizing their strength when working together. Izuku nodded, feeling more confident, knowing that with All Might and Superman together, they could face any challenge. As Kai began to float a few meters off the ground, he teased All Might to keep up. All Might chuckled, responding that he should be saying that to Kai. With a burst of speed, All Might launched himself toward the 𝐴𝐴, delivering a powerful blow. However, the creature remained unfazed, barely flinching from the impact. Undeterred, Kai quickly maneuvered to the left side of the 𝐴𝐴, unleashing a powerful attack that generated a shockwave upon impact, forcing the 𝐴𝐴 back. All Might admitted that he was having little effect on the creature, casting a shadow over their efforts. Kai urged him to keep pressing the attack, noting that the 𝐴𝐴 had stepped back after their combined efforts. The two heroes launched a coordinated assault on the monstrous 𝐴𝐴. Kai attacked with his heat vision, forcing the creature to shield itself, while All Might appeared from behind to deliver a powerful blow that sent the 𝐴𝐴 crashing toward Kai, who then slammed it into the ground, leaving a trail of destruction. The students watched in awe at the display of power from their heroes. Tsuyu remarked on their amazing abilities, and Mineta expressed relief that they were truly safe. However, villains began to surround them, prompting Izuku to activate his quirk. Before he could engage, explosions and ice pillars erupted, knocking the villains out. Izuku felt relief upon seeing Todoroki, Bakugo, and Kirishima unharmed. Kirishima called out to 𝐴𝐬𝐴, who remained unconscious, worry etched on his face. Just then, something crashed nearby. Kai stood up from the crater created by the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐻 punch, quickly shaking off the dizziness and spitting out BLD. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 expressed concern, but Kai reassured him that he was fine and ready to rejoin the fight. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 insisted on helping, believing that together they could defeat the villains, but Kai, despite the BLD trickling down his chin, remained steady and confident, stating that they had it under control as his body began to radiate heat. All Might was engaged in a fierce struggle with the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐻, BLD seeping from a new wound across his side. The creature's claws had found their mark, adding to the hero's injuries. Just as the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐻 was about to strike All Might again, Kai intercepted, landing a punch that knocked the monster back. Kai urged All Might to save his strength, explaining that he didn't know how much energy he had left. The emblem on Kai's suit began to glow with a red solar flame, intensifying the heat and light around him. The 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐻 lunged again, but Kai was ready. With a burst of speed, he met the creature head-on. As the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐻 swung its massive fist, Kai dodged with precision and landed a powerful punch to its torso. The force of the blow sent shockwaves through the air, creating a crater beneath the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐻. Kai didn't stop. He followed up with 2 more devastating punches, each generating explosive impacts. With the third punch, Kai poured all his remaining solar energy into the strike, unleashing a powerful attack. He roared as his fist connected with the 𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐻's jaw, sending it flying through the air, crashing through the facility walls and disappearing into the distance, leaving a trail of smoke and debris. As Kai's body began to cool down, the red solar flares dimmed, and he landed gently on the ground, the emblem on his suit still glowing faintly. As the smoke cleared, the heroes watched in astonishment at the scene before them. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 couldn't help but voice his disbelief, wondering if this was straight out of a comic book. Bakugo nodded in agreement, his expression reflecting a mix of awe and admiration. His power was astonishing. He struck so forcefully that the creature couldn't even regenerate, and it only took 3 punches. Todoroki observed silently, contemplating the implications of such immense strength. This was the pinnacle of power. Bakugo finished the thought, his voice filled with newfound respect, acknowledging the world of professionals. All Might approached Kai, noting, 3 punches? That's 2 less than what it would have taken in my prime to defeat that creature. Kai laughed, a sense of triumph coursing through him. He admitted that he felt stronger but was now on reserve after using most of his stored energy. He turned to Shigaraki, who was watching everything with frustration. Now Kai began, his voice low and challenging. His father added, daring the villains to make a move. Shigaraki's expression twisted with frustration as he struggled to comprehend their sudden turnaround. He wondered how they had managed to defeat them. Kai taunted him, questioning if he truly wanted to end this quickly, inviting him to come at them if he dared. The 2 heroes locked eyes with the retreating villain, their presence radiating intimidation. However, their moment of respite was short-lived as the fallen villains began to stir, ready to rejoin the fight. Shigaraki, undeterred, dashed towards the heroes with Kurogiri providing support. Kai's mind raced with urgency, realizing the situation was dire. Before they could launch their attack, Izuku appeared in a flash, charging towards them with determination etched on his face. He warned them not to go near the villains. But Kurogiri intervened, opening a portal through which Shigaraki's hand emerged. Time seemed to freeze until a bullet struck Shigaraki's hand, causing him to crash to the ground. All Might declared that help had arrived, his voice filled with both relief and determination. Nizu apologized for being late as the other heroes stood alongside him. The heroes swiftly engaged the remaining villains, each taking on their share of adversaries. Nizu's voice cut through the commotion, instructing everyone to split up and protect the students, knowing that safeguarding the young heroes in training was their top priority. Despite their best efforts, Shigaraki and Kurogiri managed to slip away, leaving behind a vow of revenge against the heroes who had thwarted them. Amidst the chaos, Izuku lamented his perceived failure, feeling useless once again. But Kai, though physically weary, offered reassurance, firmly stating that it wasn't true. Turning towards them, Toshinori, now in his smaller form as All Might, expressed gratitude, acknowledging that the seconds they had bought made a difference. Overwhelmed with emotion, Izuku couldn't hold back his tears, expressing his happiness that they were both fine. With 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐽𝐻's assistance, the heroes made their way to the infirmary for treatment, while the other students were safely escorted back to the school. Now, Toshinori, Izuku, and Kai found themselves under Recovery Girl's care. Despite their injuries, including a few broken ribs for his father, the seasoned healer couldn't bring herself to scold them, admitting that she couldn't be mad at them given the situation. Toshinori sighed with relief, acknowledging Kai's pivotal role in the battle. He noted that thanks to Kai dealing with the monster, he had managed to save some of his time limit, although he suspected it had been reduced. Kai simply nodded in response, accepting the consequences of his actions with a sense of resignation. He expressed surprise that he could still get injured, realizing it was foolish to think there wasn't something out there that could challenge him. Izuku's gaze turned to All Might, concern etched into his features. Before they could delve deeper into the discussion, Tsukachi, a familiar face, entered the room. He acknowledged All Might and Superman with a nod, noting that it had been a while. Toshinori greeted him with a nod of acknowledgement. As the adults continued their conversation, the younger heroes exchanged glances, their minds racing with thoughts and concerns of their own. Izuku's concern was palpable as he addressed Kai, asking if it was okay for Tsukachi to see his father in that state. Kai's gaze shifted towards Tsukachi, his expression softening with recognition. He reassured Izuku that Tsukachi was a family friend. Tsukachi wasted no time, turning his attention to the heroes with urgency. He needed to know the details of the villain they had fought. Toshinori's worry was evident as he interjected, asking about the students and their safety. Tsukachi responded swiftly, relaying that the only one injured was a student, while the others were okay, and the two professionals were stable. Kai breathed a sigh of relief at the news, acknowledging that it was good news. He noted that if they hadn't risked their lives, the students might not have survived. Kai's response was humble yet resolute, stating that the students had also fought for their lives. Toshinori expressed pride in the young heroes, recognizing that they had experienced a part of the real world, which would make them stronger. Shigaraki stumbled into the dimly lit bar, blood dripping from multiple wounds. His breath came in ragged gasps, a mix of pain and rage etched into his features. He cursed under his breath, staggering towards the bar counter. Behind the bar, a television flickered to life, the screen filled with static before settling on a dark, featureless image. 3 voices emerged from the speakers, their tones cold and calculating. "Ah, Shigaraki," the first voice began, calm and clinical. "It appears your mission did not go as planned. I assume it was Superman who interfered." Shigaraki spat in response, his anger palpable, admitting that Superman had defeated the 𝐴𝐻𝐿, which was not supposed to happen. The second voice, more analytical and detached, chimed in, questioning how the 𝐴𝐻𝐿 had fared against Superman. Shigaraki replied that it had injured him but not enough, as Superman was too strong. A sigh echoed through the speakers, noting that Subject S, Superman, was indeed an anomaly and posed a significant threat. It was suggested that they may have to eliminate him before he became uncontrollable, a decision that was not taken lightly. Shigaraki's eyes flickered with confusion and frustration as he questioned what the speaker meant by their best creation. The analytical voice continued, ignoring Shigaraki's question. "For now, focus on strengthening our assets. We cannot afford another failure." A deeper, more authoritative voice spoke with a commanding presence. It urged Shigaraki to become stronger, reminding him that this defeat was merely a setback, not the end. He was told to use this experience to fuel his growth, as he had potential that needed to be pushed beyond its limits. Shigaraki acknowledged the voice, vowing not to let such a situation happen again. 2 weeks later, the sky over Japan was clear, the calm atmosphere contrasting sharply with the chaos about to unfold. In the heart of the city, a group of criminals had taken over a bank, holding hostages and firing indiscriminately. The police surrounded the area, but their efforts were hampered by the heavy gunfire. Kai was flying above the city, enjoying the rare moment of peace when his enhanced hearing picked up the sounds of gunfire and screams. Instantly, he changed course and sped toward the city center, arriving at the scene in seconds. Hovering above the police barricades, he saw the officers looking up in surprise and relief as Superman descended. The police chief briefed him quickly about the hostage situation, explaining that the criminals had heavy weaponry and were shooting anyone who tried to approach. Kai nodded, instructing the officers to keep their men back and ensure the civilians remained safe. With that, Kai sped into the building, his speed turning him into a blur. He quickly assessed the situation: a dozen armed men, hostages cowering on the floor, and bullets flying everywhere. Moving faster than the criminals could react, he disarmed them one by one, effortlessly tossing their weapons aside. One criminal, realizing they were losing, grabbed a hostage and pointed a gun at her head, threatening to shoot if anyone came closer. Kai's eyes glowed with determination as he commanded the criminal to let her go. The man's hand shook, but he tightened his grip on the hostage. Without hesitation, Kai appeared in front of him, swiftly disarming him and sending him sprawling to the ground. The hostage was safe, and the remaining criminals were subdued moments later. As Kai secured the last of the criminals, the police moved in to take them into custody. The hostages, shaken but unharmed, were skirted out of the building. One of them expressed gratitude to Superman, who simply smiled before taking flight once more. As he continued flying toward UA, it was the first time in 2 weeks since the attack on the USJ. The press now had something to discuss beyond him and his father, but the implication of an attack on one of the top schools left society with many doubts. After a few more seconds, he arrived at the school and headed to the teacher's lounge, where he found 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 with his head covered in bandages. Shocked to see his former teacher, Kai expressed concern, recalling that 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 was supposed to take time off to recover. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 reassured him that he had been through worse and emphasized the need to concentrate on what was coming next for the students as they made their way to Class 1A. Upon entering the classroom, Kai greeted the students, who were surprised to see him alongside 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽. Kirishima, concerned, asked if they were all right after the fight with the villain. Kai reassured them with a warm smile, while 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 nodded, though the students still seemed unconvinced. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 warned them that they should focus on other matters, as their fight was not over yet, which made the students nervous. Bakugo's smirk widened, and Izuku murmured in realization about what was coming. Kai announced that the sports festival was approaching, raising his fist in excitement. Most of the class erupted in enthusiastic agreement, their voices filling the room with energy. Kaminari interjected, questioning the appropriateness of holding the festival after a villain attack. Jiro voiced her concerns about the possibility of another attack, while Ojiro expressed worry as well. Kai understood their nervousness but reassured them that the security system had been upgraded and many heroes would participate in the event. He emphasized that if the villains tried to attack again, they would be foolish. Their true priority should be to perform well in the festival. Mineta expressed that it seemed too risky, but 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 explained that the festival was one of the biggest events in the country, and with recent events, they would be in the spotlight. Momo added that elite heroes would be watching for potential recruits. Kai echoed her sentiment, stating that many top heroes, including himself, would be observing. He encouraged them to face this new challenge with all their power, reminding them that opportunities like this were rare. With that, he wished them luck as they prepared for their classes, igniting excitement in the room. After class concluded, Izuku and his friends strolled toward the cafeteria, engaged in a lively discussion about their aspirations as heroes. Izuku expressed surprise at the idea of wanting to be a hero for money. The event began with Mick's announcement, and Todoroki quickly took the lead by freezing the ground, making it difficult for the others to move. As the son of Endeavor gained a strategic advantage, he noticed a few classmates who were not fooled by his tactic. He acknowledged them with a quiet remark as he continued running. Among those keeping pace with him were Izuku, Bakugo, Momo, Kirishima, and Mineta. Their determination to win was evident from the stands, each of them sharing the same goal: to come out on top. Izuku reminded himself to stay calm and focused as he leaped forward toward Todoroki. The path ahead was challenging, filled with robots that the students needed to defeat to pass the exam, including the formidable zero-point robots. Todoroki expressed his disappointment at the lack of challenge, activating his ice quirk to encase the zero-pointer, causing it to collapse and block the way for the other students. This display of power shocked both the participants and spectators, including Kai and his father. 𝗏𝗏𝗡 was momentarily speechless, taken aback by Todoroki's strength. Kai, feeling a sense of pride, remarked on how impressive Todoroki was, joking that he would have easily broken his record if he had entered through the standard process. As the smoke from the frozen robot cleared, the other students quickly followed Todoroki's lead. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 dashed forward, determined not to be left behind, grabbing a piece of the fallen robot as a makeshift tool to clear his path. Meanwhile, Bakugo soared above the chaos, using his explosive quirk to propel himself forward while shouting at Todoroki not to get too confident. 𝗧𝗟𝗘 and Tokoyami were also in close pursuit, each navigating the obstacles in their own unique ways. 𝗧𝗟𝗘 challenged Todoroki, determined not to let him take the lead easily. Toshi observed the students' swift progress, noting that they were performing better than the other classes. Kai felt a sense of pride in Class 1A, acknowledging their experience from facing real villains. Amidst the chaos, Yaoyorozu showcased her ingenuity by crafting a cannon from her quirk to clear the remaining 0-point robots, opening the path for herself and her classmates. Kai was silently impressed by her abilities, while his father smiled at the display. As the students moved to the second trial, they faced a daunting challenge: a giant cannon with ropes. Todoroki and Bakugo quickly gained an advantage, with Todoroki using his ice quirk to maneuver through the ropes, while Bakugo flew over the cannon. Izuku, though slower, maintained a steady rhythm as he navigated the ropes, a metal piece hanging from his back. A student from the support course used her inventions to pass the cannon swiftly, while others struggled. Entering the final part of the obstacle race, a minefield slowed Bakugo and Todoroki down, and Izuku found himself falling behind. He realized he needed a new strategy. An idea struck him, and he began scraping the ground with the piece of robot armor, drawing curious glances from onlookers. He decided to borrow Bakugo's explosive technique, gathering the landmines together. With a determined leap, he created a massive explosion that propelled him into the air, surprising everyone and allowing him to take the lead. 𝗏𝗏𝗡 was incredulous at Izuku's bold move, while Kai cheered enthusiastically. Izuku surged ahead, gaining a significant advantage over Todoroki and Bakugo. As he soared through the minefield, he realized he was losing speed and panicked about how to land. However, his determination to maintain his lead pushed aside his fear. Using the armor cable as a makeshift hammer, he propelled himself forward with another explosion. His strategy paid off as he surpassed Todoroki and Bakugo, landing firmly on the ground and sprinting toward the finish line. The crowd erupted in cheers as Izuku crossed first. He looked around the stadium, soaking in the cheers, and turned to see Kai and 𝗏𝗏𝗡 smiling at him with pride. Kai expressed his admiration for Izuku's performance, turning to his father for his thoughts. 𝗏𝗏𝗡 remained silent, his eyes fixed on Izuku with unmistakable pride. Kai recognized the look of a mentor who felt he had made the right choice. 𝗏𝗏𝗡 was brought back to the moment when Kai elbowed him, pointing at the business course students below, who were already strategizing on how to capitalize on Izuku's success. Kai shook his head with a fond smile, glancing at the eager students. They never change, he thought as he stood up. 𝗏𝗏𝗡 inquired about his destination, and he replied with a smile that he was going to see the third years, 𝗏𝗏𝗡 and the others. Kai navigated through the bustling crowd of spectators and students, making his way to the area where the third-year students were celebrating their own festival. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement and energy. Upon arriving, Kai spotted Hiroshi and Arya deep in conversation with Mirio, Nijier, and Tamaki. He recalled the first time he had met the three when they were in their first year and he was in his last. Mirio waved enthusiastically as he noticed Kai approaching. Kai greeted them warmly, asking how things were going. Nijier, her bubbly demeanor shining through, mentioned they were catching up, making the most of their last sports festival. Tamaki, typically more reserved, nodded, acknowledging the significance of the day. Kai glanced at Hiroshi and Arya, who were clearly enjoying the conversation. He asked them if they were enjoying the festival, to which Hiroshi grinned and said they were congratulating the third years for advancing to the next round. Arya added, her eyes sparkling with excitement, that it would be interesting to see how the rest of the festival unfolded. Mirio clapped a hand on Kai's shoulder, expressing pride in him and mentioning that he had heard about the enthusiasm of Kai's class. Kai chuckled and nodded, affirming that they were quite the group. He then asked the third years if they were excited about becoming professionals. Mirio enthusiastically shouted that it would have been nice to still have Kai in Sir's agency. Kai admitted he enjoyed working with Night Eye but appreciated the freedom he had under his father's agency. He mentioned that he might pay Night Eye a visit someday. Nijire, her eyes sparkling with curiosity, asked how Kai was finding his role as an assistant to Aizawa, noting it must be quite a change from being a full-time hero. Kai smiled thoughtfully, sharing that it had been an incredible experience, even though it started as a favor to Principal Nizu. He enjoyed teaching the new generation. Hiroshi connected the dots, recalling the favor Nizu had asked after Kai had accidentally destroyed the Gamma training ground during a session. The third years were visibly intrigued, and Mirio leaned in eager for details about the incident. Kai playfully refused to share specifics, stating he should probably head back as the second event was about to start. He encouraged the third years, expressing confidence in their growth and wishing them the best. As Kai waved goodbye and made his way back to the main stadium, he could hear Present Mix's enthusiastic voice announcing the start of the second event. He hurried to rejoin Toshinori in the stands, asking if he had missed anything. Toshinori replied with a smile that he had made it just in time. The students were assembling into their teams for the cavalry battle, and Kai watched intently, scanning for members of Class 1A. Izuku, Todoroki, Bakugo, and the others were strategizing, their determination evident even from a distance. Kai remarked that the cavalry battle was all about teamwork and strategy, curious to see how they would handle it. He noted that Izuku had formed a team with Tokoyami, Uraraka, and a girl with pink hair from the support course. Toshinori expressed relief that Izuku had managed to form a team, as having the 10 million points was not a good advertisement for him. Kai continued to observe his students, but his attention was drawn to Todoroki, who seemed colder than usual. He had read about Todoroki's quirk, half cold half hot, but noticed he was only using his ice abilities. Following Todoroki's gaze, Kai spotted Endeavor glaring at his son from the stands. Kai knew Endeavor wasn't the kindest person and was aware of his resentment towards his father. He understood what it felt like to be seen as a tool for someone else's ambitions. The scar on Todoroki's face raised concerns for Kai, making him suspect that Endeavor might have been abusive. For now, all he could do was observe, sensing that something was wrong. He noticed the determination in Todoroki's expression when he looked at Izuku, while Bakugo's anger towards Izuku was unmistakable. Kai sighed, wishing his pupil good luck as the second event was about to begin. The second event commenced with Mick's announcement once again. Izuku and his team had a great start, skillfully evading attacks from other teams trying to claim the 10 million points. Bakugo and Todoroki's group were particularly focused on them, but Bakugo's team faced challenges from Monoma and his team, diverting Bakugo's attention. This left Izuku to confront Todoroki, setting the stage for an intense showdown between the wielder of One for All and Endeavor's son. Todoroki's team pressed on Izuku and his team, but despite their relentless pursuit, Izuku utilized the best abilities of his team to evade all attempts to take his band. As the event advanced and time was running out, Todoroki's team began to feel desperate. Lita announced that time was almost up and revealed he had a plan, but warned that once he executed it, he would be unable to assist for a while. The team exchanged glances, and Todoroki encouraged Lita to proceed, assuring him they would handle the rest. As Lita prepared, his engines began to overheat, and he unleashed a burst of speed. In an impressive display, Todoroki's team swiftly overtook Izuku's, snatching away the band that held the points, shocking the entire stadium. Izuku, taken aback, could hardly believe what had just happened as he turned to face Lita, who wore a confident smirk. Lita declared his challenge to Midoriya, and Ochako expressed her concern about their next move. Instead of panicking, Izuku activated One for All in his arms, cracking his knuckles with determination. He declared that they would recover their points and advance to the next round, emphasizing that they had come too far to give up. With renewed resolve, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's team surged forward, launching a counterattack against Todoroki's team. Despite Dark Shadow's engagement, the opposing defense proved formidable, coming dangerously close to the bands around Todoroki's neck. Seizing the opportunity, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 led the offense against Todoroki, who unexpectedly activated his left side, engulfing his arm in flames. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 created a powerful torrent of wind that broke through Todoroki's defense, and with his other hand he snatched the band. A triumphant smile spread across 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's face as he exclaimed their success. However, Momo interjected, revealing that the band held only 70 points. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's expression shifted to one of surprise as he processed the information. Momo explained that they had such the bands to maintain their advantage in case of such an event. Frustrated, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 cursed under his breath but quickly rallied his team, urging them to push forward. Filled with determination, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's team charged toward Todoroki, who was still reeling from the last assault. They were not alone, as 𝐵𝐾𝐲's team burst through the ice wall, joining the fray. The three teams prepared for a showdown, but before the confrontation could escalate further, Present Mike announced that time was up. He revealed the results. Todoroki's team placed first, 𝐵𝐾𝐲's team second, ☆ team third, and 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's team fourth. Shock washed over 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 as he struggled to comprehend the outcome. Tokoyami explained that when 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 attacked Todoroki, he had left an opening, and while they aimed to recover the 10 million points, they did not always get what they wanted. With Dark Shadow revealing a tape worth 615 points, the team erupted into celebration as the results were finalized. The hour-long recess before the final event commenced, allowing the students time to rest and eat. Kai expressed relief, noting how close the situation had been, and Toshi agreed, commenting on young Tokoyami's interesting quirk. Kai noted 𝐵𝐾𝐲's performance and lamented that they couldn't see the end of that fight before heading to the cafeteria for food. As Kai made his way to the cafeteria, he noticed Todoroki approaching 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴, exchanging words before 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 followed him. Curiosity piqued, Kai began to follow them. The two students stood facing each other at the stadium's entrance, tension thick in the air as Todoroki gazed intensely at 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴, feeling nervous, asked what Todoroki wanted to discuss. When Todoroki remained silent, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 attempted to break the tension by mentioning lunch, but his lack of response only heightened 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's anxiety. Finally, Todoroki spoke, his voice heavy with remorse, admitting he had been overpowered and had broken a promise. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴's mind raced, wondering about the implications of this promise. Meanwhile, All Might encountered the number 2 hero, Endeavor, as they crossed paths while exiting the stadium. All Might greeted Endeavor warmly, but received only simmering hostility in return. Endeavor acknowledged All Might but remained curt in his responses. As Endeavor began to walk away, All Might intercepted him, attempting to engage in conversation about Shoto's progress. Endeavor's demeanor remained stoic, and he sharply questioned All Might's intentions. As he walked away, Endeavor's parting remark left All Might unsettled, claiming he would make Shoto a hero who would surpass both him and his son. The cryptic statement lingered in the air as Endeavor departed, leaving All Might in shock. Meanwhile, Todoroki expressed to 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 that he had felt overwhelmed, recalling a similar experience during a past encounter. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 looked nervous as Todoroki's gaze bore into him, fearing that Todoroki might have uncovered something about One for All. Todoroki's unexpected question about 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 being All Might's secret love child caught him off guard, leading to a surprise denial. Todoroki, confused, remarked that he thought 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 was like him, leaving 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴 pondering the implications of their conversation. The second match began with 𝐶𝐻𝐴 and Todoroki as the next fighters. Kai observed the scene, believing that while 𝐶𝐻𝐴 had great potential, Todoroki was a formidable opponent. As the match commenced, 𝐶𝐻𝐴 took the initiative, launching an attack with his tape in an attempt to push Todoroki out of the ring. However, Todoroki quickly countered by freezing the tape and creating a massive ice pillar that enveloped the entire stadium, effectively trapping 𝐶𝐻𝐴 beneath the ice and securing his victory. Toshinori watched in shock, his eyes widening at the unexpected turn of events. Kai, sharing his father's astonishment, quickly stood up and used his heat vision to melt the remaining ice, allowing the matches to continue. The next match featured 𝐒𝐵𝐵 from Class 1B against 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. The boy from Class 1A, feeling overconfident, attacked first with all his might, inadvertently overwhelming himself. 𝐒𝐵𝐵, using her quirk of vines instead of hair, shielded herself from the electricity, and once 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 was incapacitated, she swiftly immobilized him, claiming victory. The subsequent matches concluded rapidly. 𝐴𝐵𝐵 achieved a decisive victory over 𝐿𝐿𝐼𝐻, skillfully disarming him with her agility. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's relentless assault on 𝐻𝐼𝐻 proved effective, eliminating her swiftly and leaving the young heroine to exit the arena with her confidence shaken. Kai felt an urge to help her and stood up, catching the attention of his father, who smiled knowingly as his son left the teacher's seats. Finding 𝐻𝐼𝐻 was not difficult. Using his enhanced senses, he heard her softly crying and apologizing, likely to her family. When Kai reached her, he found her sitting on the stairs, her head buried in her arms. He approached her gently, not wanting to startle her. Momo looked up, surprise etched on her tear-streaked face. She asked him what he was doing there, her voice trembling with emotion. Kai explained that he wanted to check on her, noting that she seemed like she needed comfort. Momo's attempts to maintain a calm demeanor faltered as she began to sob again, expressing her feelings of inadequacy despite being a recommended student. She lamented that she had been defeated so easily and felt she had failed to keep her promise. Kai knelt beside her, reassuring her that it was okay to feel upset. He reminded her that everyone experiences moments when things don't go as planned, and that failure is merely a stepping stone to learning and growing stronger. Momo wiped her tears and looked up at him, a glimmer of hope in her eyes as she questioned her worth. Kai smiled warmly, affirming that she was more than good enough and possessed incredible potential. He encouraged her to believe in herself, just as he believed in her. He then mentioned that he knew someone who could help her. Momo's eyes brightened with renewed hope as she asked if he would really do that for her. Kai affirmed his commitment, stating that he wouldn't abandon one of his students. He suggested that she return to her classmates, and she nodded, standing up with newfound determination, thanking him for his support. As she walked back toward the arena, her shoulders were a bit straighter than before. Kai took out his phone and dialed a number, waiting for the person on the other end to pick up. When the call connected, he introduced himself and requested a favor for Momo 𝐻𝐼𝐻, explaining that she was incredibly talented but needed guidance in handling pressure and building confidence. The voice on the other end responded positively, and Kai smiled, grateful for the assistance. After ending the call, he returned to the teacher's stands, where his father awaited him with a smile. 𝐶𝐻𝐼𝐻 remarked on Kai's quick decision to take interest in 𝐻𝐼𝐻, but Kai clarified that he wasn't taking her on as a pupil. He believed he wasn't the right person to teach her what she needed, but he knew someone who could. Curious, 𝐶𝐻𝐼𝐻 asked who was fighting next. Young Uraraka, Kai replied, noting the frown on his father's face. She's going to fight young 𝐵𝐵𝐻. This won't end well, Kai remarked, observing the two students as they entered the arena. 𝐶𝐻𝐼𝐻 inquired about his reasoning, and Kai explained that while Ochako had a good spirit, 𝐵𝐵𝐻 was a relentless combatant. If she wanted to succeed, she would need to be strategic. As the match began, Ochako surprisingly took the initiative, charging toward 𝐵𝐻𝐻 with determination. However, 𝐵𝐻𝐻 responded coldly, using explosions to send her flying back. This pattern repeated several times, yet Ochako persisted. She's doing her best, 𝐶𝐻𝐼𝐻 commented, his focus on the unfolding battle. 𝐵𝐻𝐻 is truly a force in combat. Kai noted that there was more to Ochako's attacks than met the eye. Before 𝐶𝐻𝐼𝐻 could ask for clarification, the crowd grew restless, voicing their frustration at 𝐵𝐻𝐻's apparent reluctance to finish the match quickly. Aizawa's stern voice cut through the noise, reminding the audience that 𝐵𝐻𝐻 was being cautious because he understood the strength of his opponent. He wouldn't go easy on her, knowing she wouldn't either. Kai murmured to 𝐶𝐻𝐼𝐻 that it was time to pay attention, his gaze fixed on the sky. 𝐶𝐻𝐼𝐻 followed his line of sight and was surprised by what he saw. I take it back, she really has a shot at winning this, Kai declared confidently. As Ochako deactivated her quirk, pieces of rubble began to fall from above, hurtling toward 𝐵𝐻𝐻 as she charged forward with unwavering determination. Her mind raced with resolve as she noted 𝐒𝐿𝐲's stance, realizing he would leave his defense open. It was now or never. She was determined to win and prove herself. But to her dismay, 𝐒𝐿𝐲 unleashed a powerful blast, obliterating the rubble and sending 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 hurtling backward, shocking both her and the crowd. "You are a friend of the nerd, so I suspected you were planning something," 𝐒𝐿𝐲 taunted, his voice dripping with arrogance. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 recoiled, fear flickering in her eyes as she prepared to face the challenge ahead. "With one hit," she murmured, shaken by 𝐒𝐿𝐲's overwhelming power. The spectators looked on in shock at the sheer ferocity displayed by the young student. Kai observed 𝐒𝐿𝐲's arm shaking and noted, "So that's his full power right now." 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘 trailed off, unable to find the words to capture the intensity of the moment, while Kai finished, "Incredible," his gaze fixed on the arena. Although many believed the match was over, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 summoned her resolve and rose to her feet once more. With determination blazing in her eyes, she charged forward but faltered and collapsed from exhaustion, conceding victory to 𝐒𝐿𝐲. "She did great," Kai praised her. "You were right, Kai. She has a great spirit," 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘 concurred. "Now it's 𝐒𝐿𝐴zuku's turn," he said as the first round concluded. As 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu made his way to the waiting room, his mind lingered on the defeat of his friend when he encountered 𝐒𝐿𝐲. 𝐒𝐿𝐲 confronted him with anger, accusing him of giving 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 a plan. 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu bristled, his own anger simmering beneath the surface, and defended 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, asserting that she had come up with the plan on her own. 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu's expression softened slightly, surprise flashing in his eyes. 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu declared that if they faced off in the final, he would do his best to win, and he needed to prepare for his match. With those words, the childhood friends parted ways, each consumed by their own thoughts. 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu entered the waiting room, where he found 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 sitting at the table, her demeanor a facade of cheerfulness. Concern laced his voice as he asked if she was okay. She replied that she was fine, though her smile faltered slightly, expressing her longing to get stronger. Before 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu could respond, the announcement of his match interrupted their conversation. "Already? Well then, I'll see you around," 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu said, offering a reassuring smile before departing for the arena. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 called out to him, urging him to wait, and with a smile, she said she would be cheering for him. 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu nodded and made his way to the entrance of the arena, where he encountered 𝗛𝗏𝗏, the imposing pro-hero, regarding him with a scrutinizing gaze. 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu greeted 𝗛𝗏𝗏, a hint of nervousness coloring his tone. 𝗛𝗏𝗏 acknowledged 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu's strong quirk, comparing his power to that of All Might and Superman. 𝐒𝐿𝐴zu's nerves heightened at the unexpected praise, and he hastily replied that he needed to go. 𝗛𝗏𝗏 remarked that his fight with 𝗏𝗱 would be good training for him, warning him not to humiliate himself. "I'm not All Might nor Superman. That is obvious, isn't it? Todoroki isn't you other," 𝗂𝐿𝐴zu asserted, his resolve firm as. He walked away, leaving 𝗛𝗏𝗏 to ponder his words. 𝗂𝐿𝐴zu and Todoroki arrived at the arena, their eyes locked. Todoroki remarked stoically that 𝗂𝐿𝐴zu had come out, and 𝗂𝐿𝐴zu responded with determination that he wouldn't have missed it for anything. With the crowd's attention fixed on the match, the announcer's voice rang out, signaling the start of the showdown. 𝗂𝐿𝐴zu stood tall, prepared to face one of the strongest students in his year, if not the strongest. Despite his disadvantages, he was resolute in winning. He thought to himself that while Todoroki had his motives, he had his own, to respond to all those who believed in him. He would beat him. As the match began, Todoroki unleashed a towering pillar of ice toward 𝗂𝐿𝐴zu. Without hesitation, 𝗂𝐿𝐴zu charged at full power, focusing his energy into one of his fingers to deflect the attack. The resulting wind pressure shattered the ice pillar, sending a wave of cold air cascading through the arena. The spectators watched in astonishment, amazed by 𝗂𝐿𝐴zu's feat of stopping Todoroki's colossal assault. Kai noted that 𝗂𝐿𝐴zu had used his finger, while 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘 expressed concern, stating that the percentage he could control wouldn't be enough to stop Todoroki. Undeterred, Todoroki launched another attack, prompting 𝗂𝐴zu to repel it once more with another finger. As the relentless barrage continued, 𝗂𝐴zu quickly exhausted his supply of fingers on his right hand. He strategized inwardly, analyzing his opponent's movements and realizing that Todoroki was using ice to stabilize himself against the wind pressure. Despite Izuku's resilience, Todoroki adapted his strategy, creating an ice pillar to close the distance between them. Izuku reacted swiftly, destroying the pillar, but Todoroki capitalized on the distraction, launching an aerial assault and trapping Izuku's feet in ice. With determination blazing in his eyes, Izuku charged his entire arm, unleashing a powerful attack to break free. However, the exertion left his left arm in pain. Despite this, he noticed something in Todoroki's demeanor. He was shaking, reaching his limit. Todoroki acknowledged Izuku, mentioning that his father looked angry in the stands and declared it was time to end the match. As he prepared what everyone thought would be the finishing move, Izuku surprised everyone by launching a counterattack with his injured finger, catching Todoroki off guard. Todoroki exclaimed in bewilderment at Izuku's unorthodox tactics. Izuku observed that Todoroki was shaking and pointed out that quirks were also physical abilities with limits. He challenged Todoroki to fight with everything he had, emphasizing that everyone was striving for their dreams. With Izuku's words igniting Todoroki's anger, Kai responded with a mixture of pride and worry, recognizing that Izuku had finally grasped the essence of pushing beyond limits to become the best. "This is not the way they wanted him to do it," Toshinori lamented, his fists clenched in frustration. His anger boiled over as he charged toward Izuku, who noticed that his movements were slower than before. This was Izuku's chance. Activating One for All in his legs, he reminded himself to stay focused, keeping it at 5. With a powerful kick to Todoroki's stomach, he sent him reeling backward. Kai cheered, his voice filled with pride, amazed by Izuku taking the lead in the combat. Izuku pressed his advantage, relentlessly cornering Todoroki as he continued his offensive assault. Todoroki struggled to keep up with Izuku's relentless onslaught and questioned why Izuku was going so far. Izuku responded that he wanted to live up to what the people he cared about thought he could do, aspiring to be a great hero. As he pressed Todoroki even more, Todoroki attempted to retaliate, but Izuku effortlessly dodged his attacks and delivered another punishing blow. Kai smiled, noting how Izuku was now on the offensive and not breaking his body anymore. As the battle raged on, Izuku continued to drive Todoroki further back. Todoroki demanded to know why Izuku was doing this. Izuku replied that he wanted to give his all and urged Todoroki to stop playing games and get serious if he wanted to be number one without using all of his power. Frustrated, Todoroki snapped that he would beat Izuku. Izuku launched another attack, and Todoroki hesitated, allowing Izuku to connect. He muttered that he refused to use his quirk. Izuku shouted that it was Todoroki's power, not someone else's. Todoroki's eyes widened as those words reminded him of his mother, who had encouraged him to embrace his potential and not be a prisoner of his BLD. With a surge of determination, Todoroki unleashed a torrent of flames from his left side, surprising everyone in the stadium. Kai murmured in awe, smiling at Izuku while shaking his head, recognizing Izuku's tendency to save others. Izuku gazed at the flames with admiration. Todoroki questioned why Izuku was smiling despite his injuries, warning him not to blame Todoroki if something happened. Both prepared to finish the match for good. Concern rippled through the ranks of pro heroes as they watched the two young combatants charge toward each other, their formidable powers colliding in a clash of titans. 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐺 voiced the collective worry that if Izuku continued like this, his body wouldn't hold up. But before anyone could intervene, the attacks were launched. Todoroki unleashed a massive ice pillar, while Izuku propelled himself toward his opponent with full force, resolving to give everything he had. Meanwhile, Todoroki ignited his left side, preparing for his final attack. With a hint of gratitude, Todoroki acknowledged Izuku. The impact of their attacks created a massive shockwave, engulfing the arena in smoke. As the smoke cleared, Izuku was seen unconscious against the stadium wall, while Todoroki remained standing in the arena. Midnight announced that Midoriya was out of bounds, declaring Todoroki the winner of this round to the cheering crowd. Izuku was taken unconscious to the infirmary while Todoroki looked conflicted. Class 1A was in shock about their companion's fight. Kirishima exclaimed that it was incredible, praising both Midoriya and Todoroki. Ochako expressed her concern for 𝐻𝐼𝐻, noting that his injuries looked serious. Kaminari was impressed by how Izuku attacked Todoroki with his legs, suggesting he seemed skilled in martial arts. Ida added that Midoriya had received advice from Superman about hand-to-hand combat. Momo, intrigued, began to consider her own combat skills, pondering whether she could learn to fight like them. Meanwhile, in the infirmary, Recovery Girl was furious, shouting at both Kai and Toshinori for putting too much pressure on Izuku. She turned to the now-awake Izuku, noting that his right arm bones were severely damaged and would require surgery to ensure proper healing. Before they could respond, Ochako, Ida, and Momo entered the infirmary, expressing their concern for Izuku. They greeted him with worry evident in their voices. Izuku managed a weak smile and asked how the others were doing. Ida informed him that they were repairing the arena after his fight, giving them a few minutes before the next matches. Concerned, Ochako asked if 𝐻𝐼𝐻 was okay. Before Izuku could respond, Recovery Girl interjected that she needed to perform surgery now. The students looked on with concern, but the medic assured them that he would be okay. After the surgery, Izuku was almost fully recovered, albeit with a scar across his right hand. Kai remarked that the scar looked cool, earning a reprimand from Recovery Girl. She angrily told him not to say that. He was fortunate to still be able to move his hand after the stunt he pulled. She turned to Izuku, who was contemplating his hand. She spoke seriously, reminding him that he needed to use this experience as a lesson, and that she wouldn't be healing injuries like that again. This revelation shocked the two heroes and the student. Recovery urged the heroes to teach Izuku how to use his power correctly, ensuring he wouldn't harm himself in the process. Kai agreed, promising they would do it. As they left the infirmary, Izuku kept his gaze downcast until he turned to All Might and Kai, his expression heavy with thought. He asked if All Might had originally come to UA to find a successor. All Might confirmed that was indeed the plan. Izuku hesitated, but Toshinori interrupted, stating he wouldn't be searching for a new successor. Izuku was about to respond when Kai firmly gripped his shoulders, insisting he should dismiss such thoughts and never speak like that again. Izuku's eyes widened at Kai's unexpected display of emotion. Kai reassured Izuku that even in defeat, he had accomplished something greater by helping a classmate, sacrificing his victory for someone in need. This made him worthy, just as he had been when he jumped in to help Bakugo or Uraraka. Toshinori added that he didn't believe having a born quirk made a difference, revealing that he had once been quirkless too. Izuku's surprise was evident as he learned this new detail about All Might. Toshinori explained that being quirkless wasn't as rare in his generation. Izuku expressed his surprise that he had never been told this, to which Toshinori replied that he hadn't asked. He saw a reflection of his younger self in Izuku, but Izuku always seemed to exceed his expectations. Kai added that there was something special within Izuku, something only he could achieve, and they believed in him. Izuku apologized, feeling regret for doubting himself. Toshinori encouraged him to learn from this experience and grow stronger, patting him on the back. Izuku affirmed with newfound confidence and was told to return to his class and enjoy the rest of the festival. As the festival resumed, the students continued to impress the crowd. Lita defeated Ibara, pushing her out of the ring, while Mina was defeated by Tokoyami. Bakugo emerged victorious against Kirishima, pushing Ejiro to his limits. Lita faced Todoroki in the semifinals, attacking first in an effort to defeat him quickly. However, Shoto countered by freezing Lita's engines, immobilizing him and securing the victory. Yet, the son of the number 2 hero appeared conflicted, his thoughts drifting back to his fight with Izuku. The clash between Tokoyami and Bakugo was equally intense, with Bakugo ultimately winning after forcing Dark Shadow to retreat by using the light from his explosions to weaken Tokoyami. The crowd now knew who would face off in the final showdown, Todoroki against Bakugo. While Todoroki remained lost in thought, Bakugo looked as furious as ever. Toshinori noted that the two strongest students would face each other, expressing concern that Todoroki didn't seem to be at his best since his fight with Izuku. As the fight commenced, Todoroki attacked first, creating an ice wall to trap Bakugo. Kai observed that Todoroki was employing the same strategy as in his previous fight. Soon, the ice trembled as 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 used his explosions to tunnel his way out. He shouted that Todoroki's attacks were strong but his aim was poor, then rushed toward him. Shoto attempted to grab 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, but 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 evaded and countered, throwing Shoto aside with a powerful explosion. Shoto quickly recovered, creating an ice wave to prevent himself from falling out of bounds. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 avoided the ice and charged at Shoto, who simply tossed him aside instead of using his fire. Bakugo, annoyed, demanded to know why Todoroki wasn't using his flames, insisting that he couldn't prove he was the strongest without facing Todoroki at full strength. Todoroki's mind was flooded with childhood memories, causing his will to fight to wane. Just as he was about to give up, Izuku's voice reached him, urging him not to give up. Shoto's eyes widened as flames erupted around his left side. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 soared into the air, using explosions to propel himself in a circular motion, creating a whirlwind. Shoto aimed his flames at 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 but was haunted by memories of his family, causing him to hesitate. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, however, pressed on, unleashing his attack with a powerful shout, causing a massive explosion that shattered Shoto's ice and sent him flying out of bounds. As the dust settled, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 Bakugo stood amidst the remnants of the ice, breathing heavily. He scanned the arena for Shoto, finding him unconscious atop his own creation, a sparkling fortress of ice. Frustrated, Bakugo approached Shoto, grabbing the front of his shirt and shaking him, demanding he get up and fight. Shoto remained unresponsive, his breath shallow, while the crowd watched in stunned silence. Bakugo's grip tightened, his frustration boiling over as he declared that this wasn't a real victory. Before he could act further, Midnight appeared beside him, her expression serious. Activating her quirk, she released a sweet-smelling pink mist that enveloped Bakugo. His grip loosened, and he staggered back, his eyelids growing heavy until he collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Midnight looked down at the two fallen fighters with a mix of concern and authority, declaring 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 Bakugo the winner, her voice steady despite the chaos that had just unfolded. Present Mix's voice boomed through the speakers, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. And there you have it, folks. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 Bakugo is the first-place winner of the 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 Sports Festival. With the festival concluded, the awards ceremony began under a sky transitioning from the bright hues of day to the golden glow of evening. The first, second, and third-place contestants took the podium, though 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 Bakugo was held back due to his explosive demeanor. His fury at Shoto Todoroki for throwing the match was still palpable, and his eyes blazed with unquenched anger. 𝐶𝐮𝐵𝐺 Tokoyami shared third place with Tenya Ida, though Tenya had left earlier due to a family matter. Kai looked at his father, who was about to present the awards to the top contestants. All Might first approached 𝐶𝐮𝐵𝐺. He praised him, saying he had great potential and encouraged him to train harder so he wouldn't rely too heavily on Dark Shadow. 𝐶𝐮𝐵𝐺 bowed respectfully, clutching the bronze medal with a determined expression. Next, All Might turned to Shoto Todoroki, holding the silver medal. He acknowledged Shoto's immense power but noted that he hadn't used his flames during the final fight. Shoto's gaze was steady yet conflicted, revealing his inner turmoil. He expressed that Midoriya had opened his eyes, but he still had doubts about his path to becoming a hero. All Might nodded, placing the silver medal around Shoto's neck and encouraging him to keep searching for his truth. Finally, All Might moved to 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 Bakugo, who glared defiantly, his restraints barely containing his rage. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 insisted that the victory did not prove he was the best. Undeterred, All Might placed the gold medal in 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's mouth, insisting he take it, even if he didn't believe he deserved it. 𝐀𝐮𝐭o𝐡𝐨𝐫's muffled protests echoed through the stadium, but the ceremony concluded with All Might's closing words, commending all the contestants for their incredible spirit and determination. After the ceremony, the students dispersed, each processing the aftermath of the festival in their own way. Shota Aizawa excused Class 1A from school for the next 2 days to recuperate, announcing they would review draft forms upon their return. Everyone headed home, some determined to improve, others facing their own defeats, while some had more pressing matters than the festival to contend with. That night, after the awards ceremony and emotional encounters, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 made his way back to his apartment. The city was quiet, the usual hustle and bustle having died down. He was lost in thought, replaying the day's events in his mind, when something caught his attention, a figure flying above him. Instinctively, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 used his supervision to get a closer look. His eyes widened in surprise as he saw a person clad in a black suit, their face covered. What startled him the most was the symbol on their chest, the same symbol he wore on his hero costume, the one the scientists had put on him. Without hesitation, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 took to the sky, flying towards the mysterious figure. As he got closer, the figure turned to face him. Despite the mask, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 could feel their gaze piercing through him. He called out, trying to sound non-threatening, asking who they were. The figure hovered there watching him. Finally, in a voice muffled by the mask, they spoke, hinting at a future meeting with him. 𝐾𝐼's heart raced at the mention of his name, demanding to know what they meant. The figure cryptically mentioned that he would find out soon when their father decided. Before 𝐾𝐼 could react, the figure began to dissolve into a purple mist. Recognizing it as the same mist used by the villain who had attacked the USJ, he shouted in desperation, lunging forward, but it was too late. The figure vanished, leaving behind only the faintest trace of the purple mist. 𝐾𝐼 hovered there, scanning the area for any sign of the mysterious person, filled with questions about who they were and what they meant by father. In an unknown location, the mysterious girl reappeared in what looked to be a high-tech lab, where 3 individuals were waiting for her. One of the scientists snapped at her, expressing a mix of anger and concern about her absence. Another scientist added that she was not supposed to leave without permission. 𝐾𝐮𝐿, her face showing a mix of restraint and confusion, looked down and softly expressed her longing to see her older brother. A deep, authoritative voice echoed through the lab, silencing the scientists. 𝐿, the feared leader of the League of Villains, stepped forward, his presence commanding and ominous. He reminded her to be patient, assuring her that soon she would be with her brother once he joined them. 𝐾𝐮𝐿 looked up at 𝐿, her eyes filled with a twisted mix of hope and obedience, asking when that would be. He replied with a sinister smile, indicating that everything was proceeding as planned and that her brother would come to them, completing their family. The scientists exchanged uneasy glances but remained silent, knowing better than to interrupt their leader. 𝐿 instructed them to ensure that 𝐾𝐮𝐿 was properly monitored from then on, emphasizing that they could not afford any more unexpected excursions. They acknowledged his orders in unison. 𝐾𝐮𝐿 then expressed a flicker of doubt, asking what would happen if her brother didn't want to join them. 𝐿's smile widened, assuring her that he would eventually see where he belonged, urging her to have faith. 𝐾𝐮𝐿 nodded, the conditioning she had undergone suppressing any lingering doubts. 𝐿 softened his voice slightly, instructing her to return to her quarters and rest as they had much to prepare for. 𝐾𝐮𝐿 obeyed, leaving the lab under the watchful eyes of the scientists. As she walked away, 𝐿 turned to the scientists, reminding them to ensure everything was ready for when the time came, as they could not afford any mistakes. As 𝐾𝐮𝐿 walked away, 𝐿 watched her intently, a frown slowly forming on his face. He mused aloud about the strange signs of resistance he had noticed in her, expressing concern that she remembered her brother, thoughts he had not implanted. The scientists exchanged worried glances, and one of them stepped forward, sensing the gravity of the situation. It was possible that the differences in procedures used on the 2 subjects accounted for the varying results. The experiments conducted on Subject S were more extreme, while the methods applied to Subject X were more refined after achieving results with Superman. Consequently, the trauma experienced by Subject X was less severe. 𝐿 nodded thoughtfully, acknowledging the assessment. The second scientist, his voice slightly trembling, asked what their next steps should be. 𝐿's gaze hardened as he instructed them to continue with their plan. 𝐾𝐮𝐿 needed closer monitoring to ensure she did not deviate again. More importantly, they had to prepare for the inevitable confrontation, as he believed that if anyone could break the Man of Steel, it was her. The scientists nodded, taking notes and whispering among themselves about adjustments to the plan. 𝐿 turned his attention back to the dark corridor where 𝐾𝐮𝐿 had vanished, expressing his anticipation for the moment when 𝐀𝐮 would be reunited with his sister. He believed that once they were together, 𝐀𝐮 would see the truth and join them in reshaping the world. A malicious smile spread across his face, reveling in the satisfaction of his grand design. With 𝐀𝐮 by his side, they possessed a weapon unlike any other, one capable of challenging even the greatest heroes. 2 days passed, and 𝐀𝐮 found himself struggling. He had spoken with both his father and grandfather separately, each advising him to be cautious. The words 𝐀𝐮 had spoken lingered in his mind, but he could not recall anything that might provide clarity. His memory showed no signs of recovery. A voice pulled him from his thoughts. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 looked at him with concern as the train they were on rumbled toward you. 𝐀𝐮 acknowledged him, assuring 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 that everything was fine. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 expressed his gratitude, noting that 𝐀𝐮 didn't have to accompany him to school, though he was glad he did. 𝐀𝐮 smiled and explained that he preferred walking and taking the train on rainy days instead of flying. Their conversation was interrupted as they arrived at the station near UA, where 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 was met with waves of encouragement from the civilians, congratulating him on his performance. The duo walked with umbrellas toward the school. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 expressed surprise at the number of people who recognized him. 𝐀𝐮 reassured him that it was normal and that he would get used to it once his hero career began. As they reached the school, 𝐀𝐮 mentioned he needed to head to the teacher's office and took a different route. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 smiled and waved goodbye. As 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 continued toward the entrance, he encountered 𝐿𝐸𝐷𝐷 and attempted to ask about his brother. However, 𝐿EDA quickly changed the subject, leading them both to join their classmates in the classroom. When they settled in, �KAI and 𝐒𝐮𝐴ZAWA entered, prompting the students to greet them. 𝐒𝐮𝐴ZAWA acknowledged the class with a serious yet reassuring demeanor. 𝐶U asked if he was feeling all right, to which 𝐒𝐮𝐴ZAWA replied that he was fine after some intense treatment. He then announced that they would have a special class focused on information about heroes, eliciting a mix of curiosity and apprehension from the students. �KAI playfully interjected, teasing 𝐒𝐮𝐴ZAWA about scaring the students again. 𝐒𝐮𝐴ZAWA retorted that it was not his fault, they couldn't handle a little suspense. He then informed the class that they would be deciding on their hero names, linking it to the hero draft mentioned before the sports festival. �KAI encouraged the students, reminding them that even if they had not received offers, they would still participate in internships. Ochako exclaimed her realization about the significance of choosing hero names. �KAI cautioned them to choose wisely, as their names would represent their identities. The classroom fell silent when Midnight entered, commanding attention as she announced the next phase of the lesson with urgency. Midnight explained that the activity would involve students presenting their ideas for hero names, with �KAI providing advice on their choices. 𝐒𝐮𝐴ZAWA reminded them to consider the image they wanted to project in the future. Midnight emphasized that their hero names should embody confidence and security, citing examples like All Might and Superman. As the presentations began, Aoyama and Ishido took their turns, with Ishido's choice being rejected due to its association with a horror movie. Tsuyu presented her hero name, Froppy, which received praise from both �KAI and Midnight. Kirishima declared his name, Robust Hero, Red Riot, paying homage to Crimson Riot. Midnight reminded the class that using the name of someone they admired could add pressure. Kirishima expressed his readiness for the challenge, then turned to �KAI, asking about his own hero name. �KAI smiled nostalgically, sharing that he hadn't chosen it himself. A close friend had chosen it for him, reminding the class that inspiration could come from others. The class continued choosing names until it was 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's turn. He stood up, nervous but determined. When he revealed his hero name, Deku, pride radiated from him as he reflected on his journey. 𝐿EDA and Bakugo followed with their own choices, and the discussion shifted to internships, with 𝐒𝐮𝐴ZAWA outlining the options for both those who received offers and those who did not. With the hero names finalized, 𝐒𝐮𝐴ZAWA announced that they could now begin discussing their internships, setting the stage for the next phase of their hero training. You'll have until the end of the week to decide with whom you're going to intern, �KAI informed his students. He encouraged them to reflect on the sports festival and identify their weaknesses. Choose the agency or hero that can help you overcome those flaws. You have the rest of the day to decide, 𝐒𝐮𝐴ZAWA added before leaving the classroom. As the class began to review the internship offers, �KAI signaled for Yaoyorozu to follow him outside. Once they were in the hallway, he presented her with a form. I spoke with an old mentor, 𝐻𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 examined the form with keen interest. 𝐻𝐮𝐦𝐽, the former psychic of All Might. His quirk allows him to see the future, right? Kai nodded. Yes, I worked with him a few times and interned under him. I believe he is the best option for you to develop quick thinking and learn to predict your opponent's moves. Taking the form from Kai, 𝐻𝐼ROZU felt her resolve strengthen. Thank you, sensei. I'll reach out to 𝐻𝐻𝐽. Kai patted her on the shoulder. You're welcome. Do your best. After their conversation, Kai headed to the teacher's lounge, feeling a sense of satisfaction about 𝐻𝐼ROZU's promising future. However, upon entering, he was met with an unexpected sight. His father, 𝐶𝐻𝐼ROZU, stood there with a paper in hand, his face flushed and hands slightly trembling. The other teachers, including Aizawa and Midnight, observed with varying degrees of amusement and curiosity. What's wrong with you, Dad? Kai asked, a teasing tone in his voice as he noticed the tension in the room. You look like you've seen a ghost. 𝐶𝐻𝐼ROZU remained silent as he handed the paper to Kai. As Kai read it, his expression shifted to one of surprise. Is he asked, turning to his father, who nodded. Kai took a deep breath, sensing that things were about to get complicated. As the end of the day approached, the students prepared to leave the school. However, Izuku was surprised to find Kai and All Might standing in the doorway. I'm in a rather unusual position, All Might announced, his trademark smile slightly strained. And I'm just here to observe, Kai added with a wry grin. Curious, Izuku asked what was happening. All Might beckoned him to follow. Once they arrived at All Might's office, Izuku was taken aback to see All Might shaking, while Kai also appeared a bit pale. To the point, you have received an offer from a hero. All Might declared, his eyes shining with pride. Really? Izuku exclaimed, filled with excitement. His name is Gran Torino, Kai interjected. He was a professor here at U. For only 1 year. He was my homeroom teacher, Toshinori said, shivering as memories flooded back. He also knows about One for All and trained me, Kai added. That's incredible. The teacher of All Might and Superman. Izuku said, his excitement palpable. But he paused, noticing All Might's state. And sensei, why are you shaking? He was a close friend of my predecessor, Kai explained. As for why he's shaking, trying to regain his composure, All Might spoke up. I knew that after writing him that letter, he would show up. And knowing that my teaching is lacking, and that he used his hero name for the offer. He trailed off, scolding himself and attempting to calm his nerves. Stop shaking, Kai urged, though his own hand trembled slightly. Is he really that intimidating? Izuku asked, looking to Kai for confirmation. Kai nodded, his expression serious. He is quite stern, but honestly he is a good teacher. You should accept his offer, he said, and Izuku's determination grew. I'll go then, Izuku declared, ready to face whatever challenges Gran Torino might present. The day of the internships arrived, and all the students prepared to depart on their respective trains. Remember to maintain your best behavior and refrain from using your quirks in public unless explicitly allowed. Be cautious, now go, you don't want to be late, Aizawa instructed. Izuku attempted to speak with Lita before leaving, but the class representative assured him he was fine and urged them not to worry. Before Izuku could respond, Kai placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. I know you're concerned. I spoke with Manuel, the hero who will be with him. Don't fret, he's aware of Lita's situation. For now, focus on your internship, Kai reassured him. Okay, Izuku replied, acknowledging Kai's advice. Good, now let's get going, Kai said as they boarded the train. After a few minutes, they arrived at Gran Torino's location, which appeared abandoned. Is it really here? Izuku questioned. Don't worry, it's better on the inside, Kai assured him. He opened the door and called out, Grandpa, we're here. However, what they found inside caused startled cries from the students. The old man lay on the ground, covered in a red substance. He's dead, Izuku exclaimed in fear. But to their astonishment, the figure stirred and stood up. I'm alive, Gran Torino declared, his voice cutting through the tension. "He's alive!" Izuku shouted in disbelief. Kai chuckled at the unfolding scene. "Way to make a first impression, Gramps," he remarked with a grin. Izuku was still in shock as he looked at the old man sitting on the floor. Gran Torino, still on the ground, pointed at Kai. "You, help me get up." Kai hurried over. Yes, coming." "What happened?" he asked as he assisted the older hero to his feet. "I had some hot dogs with ketchup, but I took a spill," Gran Torino explained, then shifted his attention to Izuku. "Who are you?" he asked, pointing at him with his staff. "I'm 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐵𝐵. "It's a pleasure to meet you," Izuku replied politely. Gran Torino squinted at him. "Who?" 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐵𝐵, he repeated. "I want something to eat," Gran Torino suddenly declared. "What?" Izuku exclaimed, taken aback as he looked to Kai for answers. Kai, are you sure he's okay?" Izuku whispered, concerned. But before they could react further, Gran Torino opened Izuku's suitcase and inspected his costume. "Shoot one for all at me," Gran Torino ordered, catching Izuku off guard. "What?" Izuku exclaimed in disbelief. "I want to see how well that idiot taught you to handle it," Gran Torino continued. "Toshinori is a horrible student, so he is probably even worse as a teacher." Izuku turned to Kai, seeking guidance on what to do. "I've learned the hard way, listen to him. It will be useful, believe me," Kai encouraged Izuku. Kai was aware that time was of the essence, and Izuku expressed his urgency. Gran Torino, however, had other plans. With a sudden burst of speed, he zipped around the room, leaving the two hero students in awe. He pointed out that Izuku's use of his quirk during the festival was reckless and unthinkable. Gran Torino criticized All Might's teaching methods, claiming that despite being the strongest hero, he was not an effective mentor. Izuku was taken aback by the veteran hero's speed, realizing he couldn't even track his movements. Gran Torino declared his intention to teach Izuku the proper way to use his quirk, a wicked smile on his face that sent shivers down Kai's spine. Determined to impress the teacher of both All Might and Superman, Izuku quickly donned his costume and declared himself ready. Gran Torino urged Izuku to unleash his power, but Izuku hesitated, worried about losing control and potentially harming him. Dismissing Izuku's concerns, Gran Torino launched into action, bouncing around the room with incredible agility. Before Izuku could react, he felt a sudden impact as Gran Torino struck him from behind, catching him completely off guard. The veteran hero continued to demonstrate his prowess, landing several hits on Izuku before landing on top of the microwave, which was destroyed in the process. Gran Torino remarked on All Might's poor teaching skills, leaving Izuku feeling frustrated. He had hoped to demonstrate his abilities, but Gran Torino pointed out that Izuku's admiration for All Might was holding him back. He emphasized the need for Izuku to clear his mind and focus on his own growth as a hero. As Gran Torino left to buy food, he instructed Kai to help Izuku improve, promising that they would see results by the end of the week. Kai encouraged Izuku, assuring him that he could do it. Alone in the building, Izuku contemplated Gran Torino's words, questioning how his admiration could be a hindrance to his progress. Meanwhile, Momo Yaoyorozu stood nervously at the entrance of 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐻𝐼's agency, feeling the weight of anticipation. She knew that 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐻𝐼 was selective in choosing heroes to mentor, and her hand trembled slightly as she approached the door. Just as she was about to knock, the door swung open. A friendly voice greeted her, and she looked up to see Mirio Togata, the agency's top intern known as lemillion. He welcomed her with a warm smile and introduced himself, putting Momo at ease. Mirio explained that 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐻𝐼 rarely took on new interns, but he had a soft spot for Kai, who had been one of the best interns in the agency's history. Momo felt a surge of confidence knowing that Kai had recommended her. As Mirio led her inside, he shared insights about 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐻𝐼's teaching style, emphasizing the importance of strategy and precision. Momo nodded, absorbing the atmosphere of professionalism that surrounded her. Upon reaching 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐻𝐼's office, Mirio paused to encourage her before opening the door. Momo stepped inside and was immediately struck by the decor, which showcased 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐻𝐼's admiration for All Might and Kai. Posters and framed clippings adorned the walls, celebrating the achievements of both heroes. As time passed, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 discovered a new way to 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 his quirk, calling it full cowl. He engaged in intense training sessions with Gran Torino while Kai observed proudly. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 was improving, forcing Gran Torino to dodge more seriously. However, the veteran hero reminded 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 that he still had much to learn, demonstrating his speed by striking 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵, sending him crashing against the wall. After a rigorous training session, Kai announced that it was time for a break. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 leaned against the wall, breathing heavily, feeling both admiration and frustration at his inability to land a solid hit on Gran Torino. The veteran hero acknowledged 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵's progress, noting that he was no longer injuring himself during their sparring sessions. He believed 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 needed to develop his fighting style further. Turning to Kai, he expressed his surprise that Kai had not taught 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 any martial arts. Kai raised his hands in defense, admitting he had tried, but suggested they should eat first. Meanwhile, at Night Eye's agency, Momo, 𝐴𝐵, and Night Eye were engaged in a training session aimed at enhancing Momo's predictive abilities. The room echoed with the sounds of quick movements and the occasional thud as Momo sparred with 𝐴𝐵. Sweat glistened on Momo's brow as she focused intently on 𝐴𝐵. Despite her progress, 𝐴𝐵's agility and unpredictability made it difficult for her to anticipate his movements. Sensing her frustration, 𝐴𝐵 offered a supportive smile, acknowledging her improvement and reminding her that predicting movements came with experience. Night Eye, observing from the sidelines with his serious demeanor, interjected. He confirmed 𝐴𝐵's assessment, noting Momo's significant strides in understanding how to use her quirk. However, he emphasized that predicting was different from reacting, and she needed to improve her reaction time and adaptability. Momo nodded, her determination unwavering as she committed to working harder. Night Eye placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, reminding her that predicting an opponent's moves was only part of the equation. She also needed to adapt her strategies in real time. 𝐴𝐵 chimed in, likening the challenge to predicting a moving target that was also trying to outsmart her. Night Eye instructed 𝐴𝐵 to help Momo with her next exercise by throwing unexpected moves her way, while Momo was encouraged to use everything she had learned to anticipate and counter his attacks. As the training continued and the sun began to set, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵, Kai, and Gran Torino exited the building. Gran Torino announced they were going to confront some villains. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 expressed concern about the pace of their training, questioning if they were advancing too quickly. Kai explained that they couldn't have 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 fighting Gran Torino all the time, as it would hinder his ability to adapt to different styles and situations. Gran Torino added that the next part of 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵's training involved facing various styles. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 muttered his agreement but asked if he was truly ready for this challenge. Kai reassured him to have faith in his training. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 nodded and turned to his mentors, asking where they were heading. Kai replied that they were going to 𝐻𝐻𝐶, which startled 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 as he recalled that it was where Lita's brother had been attacked by the hero killer. Kai mentioned he had been asked to hunt down Stain in 𝐻𝐻𝐶 and that they might encounter other villains along the way. He assured 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 that if they had to confront Stain, he would handle it himself, his expression serious. As the group boarded the train to 𝐻𝐻𝐶, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 was distracted by his phone until Gran Torino's stern voice snapped him back to reality, reminding him to pay attention as they were about to arrive. Kai reassured him that the chances of Lita encountering Stain were low, but his words were interrupted when the train suddenly trembled, causing panic among the passengers. A hero crashed into the train, shattering the wall. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵's heart raced as he recognized the creature that had appeared. It was a 𝐴𝐻𝐿. Kai commanded 𝐒𝐮𝐴𝐵 to stay put, but before he could protest, Superman and Gran Torino were already on their feet. The seasoned hero delivered a swift kick to the 𝐴𝐻𝐿's head, while Superman tackled it out of the train, with Gran Torino quickly following. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐴𝐵 rushed to the hole the 𝐴𝐻𝐿 had created, only to be met with a terrifying sight. The city was engulfed in flames, chaos reigning supreme. Overwhelmed with fear, he quickly shook it off, realizing he couldn't waste any more time. He leaped from the train. Superman landed firmly on the ground, holding the 𝐴𝐻𝐿 down. He assessed that this 𝐴𝐻𝐿 was weaker than the first but could still take a beating. Gran Torino urged Superman to finish the 𝐴𝐻𝐿 quickly before it caused more havoc. Superman's eyes glowed with red light as he unleashed a powerful blast of heat vision, obliterating the gnome*s head. Gran Torino commended Superman for his quick work but reminded him they were not done yet. Superman confirmed his readiness, using his super senses to locate the center of the chaos. He noted that more gnomes were in the plaza a few blocks away and began to float, ready to take action. Gran Torino nodded, and both heroes flew swiftly toward the scene, ignoring the turmoil on the dark streets below. Meanwhile, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 dashed through narrow alleyways, recalling the pro-hero manual, who had been calling for 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷. Concern for his friends surged within him. He deduced that if 𝐒𝐮𝐷 was pursuing 𝐒𝐮𝐿, they would be in less populated areas, where 𝐒𝐮𝐿's victims were often found. As he rounded a corner, his worst fears came to life. 𝐒𝐮𝐷 stood paralyzed with fear as 𝐒𝐮 prepared to strike. Without hesitation, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 sprang into action, delivering a powerful blow to the villain's face. With adrenaline coursing through him, 𝐀𝐻 exclaimed his triumph. 𝐒𝐮𝐷, confused, questioned why 𝐀𝐻 had intervened. 𝐀𝐻 explained that he had deduced 𝐒𝐮𝐷's location based on 𝐒𝐮's patterns and asked if 𝐒𝐮𝐷 could move. 𝐒𝐮𝐷 admitted he was paralyzed, unable to move his muscles after being cut. Understanding the gravity of the situation, 𝐀𝐻 quickly analyzed their options. He discreetly sent his location to all his contacts, knowing that escaping while carrying 𝐒𝐮𝐷 would make him an easy target for 𝐒𝐮. 𝐒𝐮𝐷 pleaded with 𝐀𝐻 to leave, insisting it didn't concern him. 𝐀𝐻, wide-eyed with disbelief, questioned 𝐒𝐮𝐷's reasoning. Just then, 𝐒𝐮 spoke, his presence sending a chill down their spines, acknowledging that 𝐀𝐻 had come to save his friend. And he rejected him, filled with disdain and disapproval. The hero killer declared that he had a duty to eliminate the young hero, warning that in their fight, the weak would perish. This declaration sent shivers down Izuku's spine. Izuku, determined to prove himself, asserted that getting involved when not called was the essence of being a hero. He shifted his stance, ready for combat. 𝐶𝐮 noticed Izuku's focused effort and smiled approvingly. He drew his blade with a swift motion, taunting Izuku to see if he could keep up as he swung the knife in his direction. Activating full cowl, Izuku dramatically increased his speed, closing the gap between them and dodging 𝐶𝐮's long reach. As 𝐶𝐮 slashed at him, Izuku ducked and slid through 𝐶𝐮's legs. The hero killer spun around, expecting to find Izuku behind him, only to be surprised when Izuku leaped above him. Before 𝐶𝐮 could react, Izuku landed a powerful punch to his head, exclaiming his signature move. From a distance, Tenya observed Izuku's newfound skills, noting how his movements were reminiscent of Katsuki's in battle with a hint of awe. Izuku landed and smiled to himself, realizing that full cowl was improving his effectiveness in combat. However, his smile faded when he saw 𝐶𝐮 liking BLD from his knife, sending a chill down his spine. 𝐶𝐮's eyes narrowed as he explained coldly that it only took a small graze to incapacitate someone. He acknowledged Izuku's spirit, deeming him worthy of living, but gestured to Tenya and Native, indicating they were another matter. Izuku shouted desperately for 𝐶𝐮 to wait, trying to move but feeling powerless. Before 𝐶𝐮 could harm Tenya and Native, a torrent of flames forced him to step back as Todoroki arrived, his flames blazing. He called out to Izuku, indicating that he needed to provide more than just his location next time. Shoto created an ice path that safely slid 𝐶𝐮's victims behind him and then turned to face 𝐶𝐮, firing waves of flames. 𝐶𝐮 evaded them effortlessly, his frustration growing. Shoto faced 𝐶𝐮 resolutely, declaring he wouldn't let him take any more lives. 𝐶𝐮 lunged at Shoto with his knife, barely missing his target. Izuku warned Shoto urgently not to let 𝐶𝐮 get his BLD. Shoto maintained his distance, skillfully avoiding 𝐶𝐮's blade, but a momentary lapse allowed 𝐶𝐮 to nearly strike him. The knife grazed Shoto's cheek, and 𝐶𝐮 seized the opportunity, getting close enough to lick the BLD, but Shoto repelled him with a burst of fire. Shoto quickly created a wave of ice, cutting through 𝐶𝐮's sword. He muttered in shock, realizing how close he had come to being harmed. Tenya, filled with determination, called out to Shoto, insisting that this was his fight as he carried 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷's name. Shoto raised an eyebrow, reminding Tenya that 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷 would never have such a vengeful glare, It wasn't about revenge. 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 cut through 𝗀𝗱's ice barrier, warning him that blocking his vision wouldn't help against a faster opponent. He then threw several knives into 𝗀𝗱's left forearm, momentarily incapacitating him. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 struggled to move until the effects of his quirk ended, allowing him to rejoin the fight. He activated his quirk, dashing quickly to grab 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 and slam him against the wall, growling that he wasn't done yet. 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴, catching his breath, noted 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's BLD type based on how it flowed. 𝗀𝗱 froze 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴's legs, trying to keep him in the fight. 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴, realizing his engines were likely damaged, asked 𝗀𝗱 to freeze his legs without plugging the engines. Seizing the opportunity, 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 threw a knife at 𝗀𝗱, but 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 jumped in front, getting it lodged in his arm. Another knife pinned him down, yet 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 remained resolute. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, struggling due to his injured leg, joined forces with 𝗀𝗱. They needed to hold out until the pros arrived, but 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 insisted they couldn't wait. 𝗀𝗱 had lost too much BLD, and 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 proposed to distract 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 while 𝗀𝗱 provided support. 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 grinned, finding the 2-on-1 fight interesting. 𝗀𝗱 reflected on his struggles and how 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's words had helped him break out of his shell. He thought of his mother's support and how it had shaped his hero path. Meanwhile, 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 came to terms with his selfishness and resolved to fight alongside his peers. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 and 𝗀𝗱 coordinated their attacks. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 used his enhanced speed to dart around 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 while 𝗀𝗱 launched waves of ice. They kept 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 on the defensive, but his fighting style grew more ferocious, and he managed to cut 𝐒𝐮𝐴's leg. Despite his injuries, 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 refused to give up, declaring he would fight even without his arms as he activated his reciprocal extend technique. 𝐒𝐮𝐴 propelled himself towards 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴, ignoring his pain, while 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 used his leg to strike. Their combined attack, a punch from 𝐒𝐮𝐴 and a kick from 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴, landed with incredible force, sending 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 reeling. As 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 attempted to counter, 𝗀𝗱 launched a stream of fire, finally forcing 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 to retreat. 𝐒𝐮𝐴 and 𝗀𝗱 worked together to restrain the villain, securing him with ice and preparing to move him to the street. 𝗀𝗱 warned his allies not to let their guard down. They observed 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴's unconscious form atop 𝗀𝗱's ice pillar. With 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 subdued, they breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing their teamwork and resolve had saved the day. As the battle raged on, 𝐒𝐮𝐴 and 𝗀𝗱 regrouped, catching their breath as they eyed the formidable hero killer. The air crackled with tension as they prepared for the next phase of their fight. 𝗀𝗱 expressed concern that 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 was too fast for them to flee with 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 and native, emphasizing the need to hold out until the pros arrived. 𝐒𝐮𝐴 shook his head, his gaze steady. He insisted they couldn't wait that long, proposing to distract 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 while 𝗀𝗱 provided support from a distance. 𝗀𝗱 understood the risk but recognized the necessity, agreeing to the plan while urging 𝐒𝐮𝐴 to be careful. 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 grinned, a dangerous glint in his eyes, acknowledging the challenge of facing two opponents. 𝗀𝗱's mind raced with memories of 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴's vengeful expression, his own struggles, and the encouragement from his mother that had pushed him to embrace his powers. He resolved to protect 𝗀𝗬𝐴 and native at all costs. 𝗒𝐮𝐴 leaped from wall to wall with incredible speed, his enhanced full cowl enabling him to close the distance quickly. 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 swung his blade, but 𝗒𝐮𝐴 evaded with practiced agility, ducking and weaving through the attacks. He got behind 𝗀𝗮𝐬𝐴 but missed the punch. 𝗀𝗱 shouted a warning as he sent a wave of ice towards 𝗀𝗮𝐴, forcing him to dodge. The hero killer's movements were fluid, but 𝗀𝗱's ice kept him momentarily off balance. 𝗒𝐮𝐴 attempted another strike, but 𝗀𝗮𝐴 was already repositioning. 𝗀𝗱 shot a blast of fire, pushing 𝗀𝗮𝐴 further away. As 𝗀𝗮𝐴 dodged and countered, his ferocity grew. He managed to slash 𝗒𝐮𝐴's leg, causing the young hero to wince in pain. 𝗀𝗱 called out to 𝗒𝐮𝐴, urging him to hang in there while intensifying his fire to keep 𝗀𝗮𝐴 at bay. 𝗒𝗮𝐴 gritted his teeth, determined to push through the pain and insisted that 𝗀𝗱 focus on keeping 𝗀𝗮𝐴 off balance. 𝗀𝗮𝐴's eyes narrowed as he liked the BLD from his knife, his quirk activating and paralyzing 𝗒𝗮𝐴. He commended their heroism but declared it insufficient to stop him. 𝗀𝗱's attention shifted to 𝗀𝗬𝐴, who was still recovering. 𝗀𝗮𝐴 declared his intent to deal with the two heroes, preparing to end 𝗀𝗬𝐴's fight. 𝗀𝗱 shouted in protest, emphasizing the need to stop 𝗀𝗮𝐴. 𝗀𝗬𝐴, recalling his mentor Tensei's inspiring words, looked at his friends and felt their commitment to heroism. Despite his own failings, he resolved to fight alongside them, vowing to contribute even if it meant relying solely on his legs. 𝐶𝐮's blade sliced through 𝗀𝗱's ice wall, his eyes cold and taunting. 𝗀𝗱 was driven by memories of Izuku's encouragement and his own resolve to protect. He continued to push back 𝐶𝐮 with a fierce combination of ice and fire, declaring that they would not lose this fight. 𝐶𝐮's rage grew as he evaded 𝗀𝗱's attacks, finally closing in on him, his sword dangerously close to severing 𝗀𝗱's arm. Just then, Tenya's engines roared back to life. Despite his injuries, he stood tall and unleashed his reciprocal burst technique. With a powerful kick, he shattered 𝐶𝐮's sword, sending the villain sprawling back. Tenya apologized for the delay, explaining that he had to regain his resolve. 𝐶𝐮 sneered, infuriated, insisting that a change of heart would not save them. 𝗀𝗱, still fending off 𝐶𝐮, encouraged Tenya, affirming that he had proven himself. Tenya, with unwavering determination, declared that he was a hero and would not let the villain defeat them. As 𝐶𝐮 attacked again, 𝗀𝗱's fire blocked the way. Native urged 𝗀𝗱 to retreat, but the young hero remained focused. 𝐶𝐮 used his sword to avoid the flames, pushing against 𝗀𝗱's ice. Tenya, though battered, utilized his reciprocal extend technique. Simultaneously, Izuku, despite his leg injury, channeled One for All and propelled himself towards 𝐶𝐮. Together, they struck with a coordinated attack, Izuku's punch connecting with 𝐶𝐮's face and Tenya's kick landing in his stomach. 𝐶𝐮 staggered back, defeated. Izuku felt a sharp pain in his arm, having pushed past his limit. Seizing the moment, 𝗀𝗱 unleashed a final, scorching blast of fire that engulfed 𝐶𝐮. Now barely conscious, 𝐶𝐮 was lifted by 𝗀𝗱's ice pillar. Izuku, his voice hoarse but determined, insisted they needed to restrain him. The trio worked quickly, disarming 𝐶𝐮 and tying him up with rope they found. Native carried Izuku to the street, while 𝗀𝗱 followed with 𝐶𝐮 in tow. Native expressed guilt for not being able to do more, but Izuku reassured him that no one could defeat 𝐶𝐮 alone. It was a team effort. 𝗀𝗱 nodded in agreement, acknowledging their narrow victory and noting that 𝐶𝐮 had made mistakes in his desperation. They needed to get him out of there. As the students mobilized to transport the injured hero and the villain, the city's heroes continued their fierce battle against the nomus in the heart of Hosu City. Amidst the chaos, the strongest Nomu prepared to deliver a crushing blow to a heroine, its massive fist raised to strike. But before the blow could land, a hand appeared, effortlessly stopping the Nomu's punch in midair. The figure belonged to none other than Superman, descending from the sky with an aura of calm strength. His eyes glowed with determination as he turned toward the towering creature, declaring that it had done enough damage. Without hesitation, Superman clenched his fist and delivered a mighty punch, sending the Nomu hurtling through the air. The force of the blow was so powerful that the Nomu flew across the city, crashing through the side of a building, the impact shaking the ground. The surrounding heroes and civilians were left in awe, watching as Superman floated above the battlefield. He turned to the shocked heroine and offered a reassuring smile, assuring her that she was safe now and that he would take care of the rest. He instructed her to help evacuate the civilians while he dealt with the Nomu. As the Nomu emerged from the rubble, its body rapidly healing from the damage caused by Superman's earlier blow, its red eyes locked onto the Man of Steel. The monstrous creature let out a guttural roar and charged, determined to crush its new opponent. The Nomu threw a powerful punch, but Superman effortlessly caught it with the palm of his hand, not even flinching from the force. The Nomu, undeterred, swung with its other hand, but the result was the same. Superman stopped it just as easily, his expression calm and focused. Superman acknowledged the Nomu's strength but asserted that it was not strong enough. With a swift motion, he grabbed both of the Nomu's arms, locking them in place. The creature struggled to break free, but it was futile. Superman's grip was unbreakable. He declared that this would end now. His eyes began to glow a fierce red as his heat vision activated. With precise accuracy, Superman aimed his beams directly at the Nomu's head, focusing on its weak spot, the brain. The intense heat from his vision overwhelmed the 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼's regenerative abilities. In mere seconds, the 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼's brain disintegrated, leaving the creature motionless. Its body went limp as Superman released its arms, and the hulking beast collapsed to the ground, defeated for good. As the dust settled from the defeated 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼, Superman surveyed the battlefield. Fires raged across the cityscape, remnants of the chaos that had unfolded during the battle. He knew that while the immediate threat was neutralized, the damage left behind could still claim lives. Without hesitation, Superman flew upward, taking in the scene from above. With a deep breath, he unleashed his powerful super breath, a controlled gust of freezing wind. The flames that once encircled the battlefield were quickly extinguished as the icy air swept through the city. Smoke cleared, revealing the full extent of the destruction, but the immediate danger was over. As Superman descended, the heroes on the ground stared in awe, including Endeavor and Gran Torino, who had just arrived on the scene. Endeavor, known for his pride and immense power, watched in silence, his usual bravado tempered by the sheer power he had just witnessed. Gran Torino smiled softly, pride swelling in his chest. As Superman scanned the aftermath of the battle, his enhanced hearing suddenly picked up faint cries for help beneath a pile of rubble. His eyes widened as he focused on the source. People were trapped inside a collapsing building nearby. Without hesitation, he shot into the air, a streak of white and red flying toward the crumbling structure. The building groaned as its foundation weakened, ready to give way at any second. Superman called out, his voice strong yet reassuring as he reached the site in an instant. The walls buckled, and the ceiling began to cave in just as he landed inside. Debris rained down, but Superman stood tall, raising his hands to hold up the collapsing beams. His strength easily bore the weight of the massive structure as he guided the civilians out from under the rubble, one by one. He gently ushered the last of them to safety before he released the structure. With one final effort, Superman flew upward, carrying the remaining debris into the sky and releasing it safely away from the area. Meanwhile, as Superman tended to the civilians, a flying 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼 could be seen in the distance, fleeing with a defeated pro-hero clutched tightly in its claws. Endeavor, watching from the ground, clenched his fists in frustration. His fiery eyes narrowed as he turned to the other heroes present, commanding them to head to District 4. Without waiting for a response, Endeavor ignited his flames and launched himself into the air, chasing after the 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼. The flying creature darted through the sky, weaving between buildings in an attempt to lose its fiery pursuer. Determined, Endeavor began to melt his feet into the side of a building, using the flames to scale it rapidly. Once he reached the top, he leaped high into the air, his eyes locked onto the struggling hero trapped in the 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼's claws. Endeavor growled, his flames surging around him as he shaped his fire into a spear. The 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼, sensing the threat, glanced back just as Endeavor hurled the flaming spear with incredible precision. The fiery weapon struck the 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼, forcing it to release its grip on the hero. Endeavor surged forward, catching the falling pro-hero in midair and safely landing on the ground, cushioning the descent with his flames. The 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼, now injured and retreating, began to fly away, but Endeavor's eyes followed it closely. He watched it flee and gritted his teeth, determined not to let it escape. Superman had just finished safely evacuating the last of the civilians when his super hearing picked up something disturbing. Among the chaos of the battlefield, a familiar voice reached his ears. It was Todoroki's and Ida's, crying out in distress. Superman's eyes widened as he pinpointed the source. High above the city, a winged 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼 was fleeing with 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 clutched in its claws. Without hesitation, Superman launched himself into the air, his cape fluttering behind him as he surged upward at incredible speed. The buildings below became a blur as he closed the distance between himself and the 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼, determined to reach 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 before it was too late. Within seconds, Superman reached the 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼. The creature's eyes widened as it sensed him approaching, but it was too late. Superman flew in front of the 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼 and, with a single punch, knocked it off balance, forcing it to drop 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. The days of the internships ended, and the students began to return to high with new experiences and skills. However, for 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, things weren't as smooth. His injuries from the encounter had been severe enough that he couldn't continue with his internship. While the young student was recovering, Kai and Gran Torino sat in the living room of Gran Torino's house. Gran Torino stated that he had seen the villain who led the attack on 𝐻𝐿𝐴. Kai nodded, mentioning that he had spotted him on a ceiling a few miles away, but before he could pursue, the villain had disappeared. Gran Torino raised an eyebrow, catching the slight hesitation in Kai's voice. Kai leaned back into the worn couch, his expression conflicted. He recalled a woman he had encountered the night of the sports festival, someone who had looked at him as if she knew him. He had been thinking about her ever since, wondering if she could be connected to his past and the family he had been searching for, but he was unsure if he could trust that. What if it was just a trick? Gran Torino took another thoughtful sip of tea before setting the cup down gently. He acknowledged the long road Kai had traveled since they found him in that capsule. Kai expressed his frustration, saying he had just decided to stop looking for his family when she appeared. Gran Torino leaned forward slightly, studying Kai carefully and encouraging him to share more about her. Kai hesitated, the memory of that encounter flashing through his mind. He admitted that she felt familiar, as if he had seen her before, but he couldn't place when or how. It was possible she was connected to 𝐻𝐿, but part of him couldn't shake the feeling that she was important. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck, acknowledging that he couldn't ignore this. She could have answers about who he was and where he came from, but if she was tied to 𝐻𝐿, she could be dangerous. Gran Torino studied Kai in silence for a moment before speaking. He commended Kai for thinking like a hero but reminded him that being a hero also meant following his instincts. If his gut told him she was connected to his past, then he owed it to himself to find out, but he needed to be smart about it and not let anyone manipulate him. Kai agreed, a sad smile on his face, just as Izuku came down from his room wearing his 𝐻𝐿𝐴 uniform. Kai greeted him with a genuine smile, relieved to see him better. Izuku acknowledged that his arms still hurt a bit but expressed gratitude for Kai's training, which had helped him hold his own against a formidable opponent. Before Izuku could finish, Gran Torino playfully tapped his head with his staff. He wasn't fighting to harm anyone, so Izuku shouldn't get too confident. He rubbed his head sheepishly and acknowledged the advice. Kai smiled and suggested he head home, promising to see him back at school. Kai remarked that it was good to have the students around, even though they faced challenges greater than their classmates. Gran Torino offered his final thoughts, praising Izuku for his progress since the sports festival but reminding him that there was still much to learn. Izuku left with determination, heading toward the train station. Gran Torino then smiled at Kai, suggesting they go out for a meal, reminiscing about old times. The next day, the students returned to their routines, appearing more mature than before. Kirishima and 𝐶𝐻𝐿 teased 𝐵AKUGO about his recent trip with Best Jeanist, prompting 𝐵AKUGO to retort fiercely. The boys continued their playful banter while the girls engaged in their own conversation. Mina expressed her envy at the thought of fighting villains, while Jiro modestly explained her role in evacuation and support. Tsuyu added that she had participated in capturing smugglers, which impressed Jiro and Mina. When Tsuyu turned to Ochako, she found her lost in thought, practicing punches in the air, and Ochako confirmed that her training had been productive. Tsuyu remarked that it seemed like Ochako's inner strength had awakened. Curious, Jiro asked Momo about her experience working with All Might's former sidekick. Momo reflected on her training sessions with Mirio, mentioning that she needed to improve her predictive skills. She noted that her mentor had a good sense of humor and taught her many valuable lessons. Mina was in awe, asking if she had used her quirk often. Momo admitted that she hadn't as much as she expected, as 𝐴 focused on developing her mental strength and trusting her instincts. Denki pointed out that the three students who faced the hero killer had it the roughest, and Ejiro expressed his relief that they were all okay. Sato mentioned that Endeavor and Superman had rescued them, and Toru agreed, praising both heroes. The students recalled the events, with Todoroki confirming their rescue, though he felt strange saying it. Ojiro shared his concerns about the hero killer being associated with the League of Villains. As class began, everything seemed normal until it was time for hero basic training, where All Might and Superman awaited them. All Might greeted the students warmly, and 𝐾𝐮 announced the day's exercise, a rescue race in the Gamma field. The students would be divided into groups of 4 and would navigate through an industrial-themed course, with the first group to arrive at their location declared the winner. All Might added a reminder to avoid damaging the structures, which earned a scowl from 𝐒𝐿𝐴. As the groups were formed, 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴 found himself racing alongside 𝐿𝐿𝐴, 𝐿𝐺𝐻𝐿, 𝐵𝐵, and 𝐶𝐻𝐿. The class speculated about the race's outcome, with Denki noting that 𝐿𝐿𝐴 hadn't fully recovered and should be watching instead. 𝐂𝐵 admired his classmates' mobility, while 𝐺𝐻𝐿 expressed concern for 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴's chances. Ochako added that even if 𝐿𝐿𝐴 was injured, he was still likely to win. Todoroki, who had been quietly listening, spoke up, suggesting that they shouldn't count 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴 out just yet. The others were surprised by his confidence in their classmate. With the signal to start, everyone moved, and 𝐶𝐻𝐿 initially took the lead. However, a green flash quickly overtook him as 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴 surged ahead, surprising his classmates. 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴 felt exhilarated as he effortlessly surpassed his peers, leaving the class in awe. Denki exclaimed in disbelief at 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴's newfound speed, while Kirishima celebrated his friend's progress. Ochako watched with admiration, noting how much he had improved. Todoroki, arms crossed, acknowledged that 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴 had learned to control his quirk better than before, crediting his internship for the growth. 𝐶𝐻𝐿 tried to catch up using his tape to swing through the structures, but 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴's head start was significant. 𝐿𝐿𝐴, despite his injury, pushed himself forward with determination. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐿𝐴 seethed with frustration at 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴's progress. 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴 was the first to reach All Might and 𝐾𝐮, who were proud of his advancement in controlling One for All. As the rest of the group arrived, All Might expressed pride in all of them, encouraging them to continue their hard work. He instructed the next group to prepare as 𝐾𝐮 leaned in to whisper to 𝐒𝐮𝐴, asking him to meet at his father's office after class. After the final bell rang, 𝐒𝐮𝐴 gathered his belongings and made his way toward All Might's office, his heart racing with anticipation. What could they want to discuss with him? When 𝐒𝐮𝐴 arrived at the office, he found both All Might and 𝐾𝐮, Toshinori, now in his skeletal form, seated on the couch while 𝐾𝐮 sat in front of him. Toshinori greeted 𝐒𝐮𝐴 with a serious tone, gesturing for him to take a seat. 𝐾𝐮, still standing, gave a slight nod and mentioned that they had something important to talk about. 𝐒𝐮𝐴 nodded and sat beside 𝐾𝐮. All Might's expression turned grave as he informed 𝐒𝐮𝐴 that they had heard the hero killer had tasted his BLD. 𝐒𝐮𝐴's eyes widened in realization, confirming that this was indeed how the hero killer's quirk functioned. Toshinori's voice held a note of urgency as he reminded 𝐒𝐮𝐴 of their previous conversation about the power he had inherited. In a surprising moment, 𝐒𝐮𝐴 imitated All Might's face and exclaimed, prompting 𝐾𝐮 to burst into laughter, falling to the ground in amusement. Toshinori quickly interrupted, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation, explaining that One for All was passed through DNA. 𝐒𝐮𝐴's panic rose as he questioned whether that meant the hero killer had gained One for All. 𝐾𝐮 reassured him that it didn't work that way. To pass on One for All, one must willingly agree to do so. 𝐒𝐮𝐴 sighed in relief, realizing the gravity of the situation. 𝐾𝐮, with a smile, teased 𝐒𝐮𝐴 about the potential of giving such a powerful quirk to a villain, but then reminded him that there were other matters to discuss regarding One for All. Toshinori's expression softened slightly after the laughter faded, but the serious atmosphere returned as he leaned forward, looking 𝐒𝐮𝐴 straight in the eyes. He explained that there was much more to understand about One for All, especially now that they were facing threats like the hero killer and the increasingly active League of Villains. 𝐒𝐮𝐴's heart raced as he absorbed the weight of the moment. He had always sensed that One for All held deeper significance, but hearing Toshinori speak about it in such a serious manner made him acutely aware of the responsibility he now bore. Toshinori continued, revealing that One for All had not always been a force for good. It was born from darkness. 𝐒𝐮𝐴 listened intently as Toshinori recounted the story of a man named All for One, who possessed a powerful quirk that allowed him to steal others' quirks and use them as he pleased. He ruled through fear and control until his younger brother, who appeared to have no quirk, stood against him. This younger brother believed in justice and resisted All for One, ultimately receiving a quirk that could store power. Unbeknownst to All for One, The younger brother already possessed a dormant quirk that could be passed on to others. Thus, one for all was born. 𝗏𝗏𝐸 explained how the quirk was passed down through generations, each user adding their strength until it became what it was today. He paused, meeting Izuku's gaze, emphasizing that now it rested with him. Kai, who had been quietly observing, shifted his weight and cleared his throat, his usual carefree demeanor replaced by seriousness. He caught Izuku's attention and gave him a knowing glance before speaking. There was something else he needed to share, something about his true identity. Izuku blinked in confusion as Kai revealed that he was not really All Might's son. The revelation shocked Izuku, disbelief evident on his face. Kai explained that everyone was meant to believe that, but the truth was he had no memory of his real family, having been kidnapped at a young age. Kai continued, explaining that the individuals who took him were part of an underground organization connected to All for One, obsessed with experimenting on quirks. He had been subjected to terrible things as a child, and the villains had a specific plan for him, to replace All Might. Izuku's shock deepened as Kai detailed how he was meant to be a tool for the villains, a weapon to surpass All Might, manipulated from the shadows. The realization of what Kai had endured hit Izuku hard, and he could hardly fathom the torment his friend had experienced. Kai explained that he had been placed in a deep sleep, intended to remain dormant until the villains were ready to use him. All Might and Gran Torino had found him, and when he awoke at age 15 on Island, he had no memories or knowledge of his past. 𝗏𝗏𝐸 had taken him in, seeing something worth saving in him, and adopted him. Izuku absorbed Kai's story in silence, the weight of his words revealing how close the villains had come to acquiring a powerful weapon that could have shifted the balance of power. Kai leaned forward, his tone serious once again, and revealed that the 𝗏𝗏𝐸, the bioweapons they had been fighting, possessed multiple quirks, which was unnatural. He suspected that All for One was behind this, still out there, pulling strings and building an army of bioweapons with stolen quirks. Izuku's heart pounded as he processed the implications of Kai's revelations. Kai met Izuku's eyes, his voice steady as he spoke about the challenges ahead. He expressed his certainty that Izuku, as the current holder of One for All, would eventually have to confront All for One and his creations. With a reassuring smile, he added that he would do everything in his power to protect him. Izuku straightened, determination radiating from him. He felt ready to face any challenge as long as he had All Might and Kai by his side. 𝗏𝗏𝐸, who had been quiet, looked at Izuku with a mix of pride and conflict. His expression revealed an internal struggle, but he simply smiled weakly and expressed his gratitude. Once Izuku left the room, Kai turned to 𝗏𝗏𝐸, his expression serious. He urged 𝗏𝗏𝐸 to share the truth about his prediction and the possibility of his death. 𝗏𝗏𝐸 winced at the reminder, admitting he couldn't burden Izuku with that knowledge just yet. Kai pressed on, questioning whether 𝗏𝗏𝐸 truly believed he would die. 𝗏𝗏𝐸 confessed his uncertainty, stating there were still many things he needed to accomplish before he could hang up his cape for good. Kai reassured him with a smile, promising they would take down their enemies together, ensuring no one would have to die. 𝗏𝗏𝐸 admired Kai's unwavering faith in him, the world, and the future. Kai credited his inspiration to 𝗏𝗏𝐸 himself, affirming they would face whatever came their way together. As the day ended, Aizawa's voice echoed through the classroom, reminding the students that only 1 week remained before the final exams. He emphasized the importance of studying and staying alert for both the practical and written exams. Kai added his encouragement, waving goodbye to his students as they left the classroom. Kai chuckled softly, reminiscing about past experiences. Aizawa, with a tired gaze, expressed his concern about the students' readiness for the upcoming exams, noting that this year's format would be different. Kai agreed, acknowledging 𝗏𝗏𝐸's efforts to make the exams challenging, especially with the intense training camp planned for the summer. Meanwhile, the students gathered to discuss their thoughts on the upcoming exams as they walked toward the cafeteria. Momo voiced her concerns about the practical exam, while Ochako admitted her worries despite her training. Todoroki and Lita echoed her sentiments, and Tsuyu reminded them that the exam would likely focus on combat and rescue skills. Izuku began to suggest they train together when Monoma's voice interrupted, dripping with condescension. He mocked 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿, insinuating that his attention-seeking behavior was the reason for his encounters with the hero killer. Momo stepped in, questioning Monoma's intentions, while Kendo defended her friends, pointing out the challenges they had faced. Kendo shared that she had heard from a second-year student that the practical exam would involve combat against robots, similar to the admission exam. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿's surprise was palpable, and the students buzzed with excitement as they returned to class, their nerves eased by the new information. As the day came to a close, Bakugo confronted 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿, filled with determination and hostility. He declared that it didn't matter who 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿 faced, what mattered was winning. He vowed to defeat 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿 in the exam, leaving the classroom in a storm of anger, unaware that the teachers had overheard. Aizawa turned to Kai, questioning his relationship with Midoriya and Bakugo's issues with him. Kai explained that Bakugo had bullied 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿 in the past and seemed to struggle with insecurities regarding those stronger than him. Aizawa's expression darkened, realizing the depth of Bakugo's problems. As the exam week began, the students excelled in their written exams, thanks to the study sessions led by Momo and 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿. While 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿 revisited familiar topics, he also dedicated time to solo training. Although he had hoped to spar with Kai, the pro hero was busy, so Momo stepped in to train with him, strengthening their bond. When the practical exams approached, the students were surprised to see many of their teachers present. Aizawa announced the start of the practical exams, reminding them that failure was still a possibility, urging them to avoid any mistakes. Nizu added that this year's exams would be different, heightening the anticipation among the students. To simulate a real encounter, the students would have to fight the teachers in teams of 2. They exchanged worried glances. Facing the pro heroes was something they weren't prepared for. Momo's voice trembled as she expressed her concern about battling the professors. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿 muttered that the situation was going to be more complicated. Aizawa continued, informing them that their partners and adversaries had already been chosen. Yaoyorozu and Todoroki would be the first team, facing him. Midoriya and Bakugo would form another team, and their opponent would be Kai, who descended from the sky with his arms crossed. Bakugo and 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿 exchanged incredulous looks, surprised by the unexpected challenge. Kai playfully reminded them that they would need to work together if they wanted to defeat him, recalling their previous night's meeting where the teachers had strategized the matchups for the exam. As the other teams were formed, the rules of the exam were explained. They had 30 minutes with 2 options, escape or capture. If one student passed through the door, both would succeed. Kai warned them to see the teachers as villains, as they would certainly act the part. Snipe added a challenge, encouraging them to try and defeat the teachers if they thought they could. Aizawa interjected, suggesting that if their opponent was too strong, it would be wise to ask for help. Kai then revealed some bracelets, explaining that the support course had created them for this very purpose. All the teachers strapped on weights to their legs and arms, preparing for the encounter. Kai explained that they would be lifting about half of their weight with these added burdens, a playful glint in his eyes as he anticipated the challenge ahead. A few minutes after their exam, Momo and Shoto entered the room where several of their classmates, including 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿, were waiting for them. Ochako exclaimed with excitement, celebrating their success. Momo smiled, feeling the warmth of her friend's encouragement, and acknowledged the intensity of the exam. Shoto nodded in agreement, noting how well they had worked together. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿 approached them, relief evident on his face, expressing his gladness that they had made it through. Momo thanked her friends for their support. As the group continued to talk, they watched the rest of their classmates progress through their exams. Mineta and Siro successfully passed by outsmarting Midnight, while Jiro and Koda managed to defeat Present Mike after Koda overcame his fear of insects. Unfortunately, Kaminari and Mina were not as fortunate, falling victim to Principal Nizu's flawless strategy. In a surprising move, Uraraka and Oyama captured 13, securing their victory. With all the exams completed, the entire class gathered in the observation room, watching intently as their classmates prepared to face the most daunting challenge yet. Bakugo and 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐿 were about to go up against Superman. Outside the arena, Kai was on the phone, discussing plans for after the exams. Melissa expressed her disbelief at Kai being a teacher at UA, to which he responded with a chuckle, mentioning a favor owed to Nizu. He wished for luck as he prepared for the exam. As Kai stretched, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 and 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 entered the arena, both silent. When the exam began, 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 moved forward with 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 closely behind. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 urged 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 to work together, but 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 snapped back, insisting he didn't need 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Frustration grew within 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 as he wondered how 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 could underestimate their opponent. Despite 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's attempts to convince him, 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 declared his intention to face Superman head-on. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 pleaded with 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿, emphasizing the danger of their approach, but 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 remained stubborn. In a moment of anger, 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 struck 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, causing a hush to fall over the observation room. Momo and Ochako exchanged worried glances, concern etched on their faces. Momo clenched her fists, frustrated by 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿's actions, while Ochako expressed her anger at the lack of teamwork. In the arena, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 stumbled backward, hurt but not retaliating, looking at 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 with disappointment. He pleaded for 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 to understand the gravity of their situation. 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿, however, insisted he didn't need 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 for the exam, leading to a heated exchange between them. Kai, overhearing their argument, sighed in disbelief, realizing he would need to intervene to encourage teamwork. Superman, determined, prepared for the challenge ahead. He reminded himself not to push the students too hard, but recognized that they needed to be challenged to grow stronger. With a powerful clap, he unleashed a massive shockwave that surged toward the students, sending them flying backward. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 and 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 quickly regained their footing, shaken by the force of the shockwave. Superman, hovering before them with an intimidating presence, taunted them, challenging them to attack. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 felt a chill run down his spine, while 𝐵𝐿�𝐿's pride flared in response to the challenge. In the observation room, Momo and Ochako's hearts raced as they watched the unfolding battle. Recovery Girl expressed concern for their strategy, noting that 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿's pride could hinder their chances. Momo observed that 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 was not the problem. It was 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐿's unwillingness to accept help that posed the real challenge. Back in the arena, Superman launched himself toward the students. 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐿 quickly distanced himself while 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿 prepared a flash grenade. However, Superman easily countered 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿's attack, slamming him to the ground. He then swiftly appeared behind 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐿, mocking him for abandoning his teammate. 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐿 reacted instinctively, activating his quirk to jump back, but Superman captured his feet and brought him down. Superman held both students firmly, commenting on their lack of trust in each other. 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿 attempted to launch an explosion, but Superman redirected the blast, causing destruction nearby. He acknowledged 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿's persistence but warned that their current strategy would lead to failure. 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐿, watching in shock, was suddenly struck by a powerful blow from Superman, sending him crashing into a building. Superman had aimed to avoid serious injury, but the impact was still overwhelming. He approached 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿, who was struggling to recover, and addressed his frustrations, pointing out the growth of his rival. 𝐵𝐿𝐿𝐿, defiant, struggled to his feet, glaring at Superman and expressing his anger. Superman smirked, ready to continue the challenge. That was the response of someone desperate, and it was disappointing to think that all of this could have been avoided if 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿 had accepted the help of his classmate. Despite the situation, 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿's defiance remained unyielding. He expressed his disdain for needing assistance, insisting that he would rather lose than rely on what he considered trash. Superman sighed, feeling a mix of disappointment and determination. He had hoped that pushing 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿 to his limits would make him realize he couldn't fight everything alone, but it seemed that wasn't the case. He warned 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿 not to regret his decision later. As Superman prepared to finish off his opponent, he sensed 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐿 approaching with his quirk activated. Standing over 𝐒𝐿𝐿𝐿, Superman contemplated two choices. He could stop 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐿's impending attack and the exam, and risk deepening the rift between the students, sealing their failure. Alternatively, he could allow 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐿's punch to connect, giving the students one last chance to demonstrate their ability to work together. In an instant, Superman made his decision. With determination in his eyes, he braced himself for the impact. 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐿's punch connected with a force that sent Superman hurtling through the air, crashing into a nearby building with a loud thud. Amidst the rubble, Superman feigned the effects of the attack, knowing he needed to make it believable. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, filled with determination, shouted at 𝗧𝗂𝐿, refusing to let him throw away everything they had worked for. As he dragged 𝗧𝗂𝐿 away from the arena, he glanced back to see Superman rising from the debris, completely unharmed. The class, despite their shock, felt a surge of relief knowing their classmates were no longer in immediate danger. Watching 𝗧𝗂𝐿 and 𝗧𝗂𝐿 disappear into the alleys of the city, a sense of pride filled the room. They had done it, and the atmosphere shifted as admiration for 𝗧𝗂𝐿 grew. Meanwhile, Superman watched as his students vanished into the city. He could have easily tracked them with his X-ray vision, but he had chosen to rely solely on his strength and flight during the test. He hoped his students would not disappoint him. After a few minutes of running, 𝗧𝗂𝐿 and 𝗧𝗂𝐿 stopped to catch their breath, leaning against a wall. 𝗧𝗂𝐿's expression was a mix of surprise and disbelief. He demanded to know what had just happened, while 𝗧𝗂𝐿 explained that he refused to let 𝗧𝗂𝐿 throw away their hard work. Despite the exhaustion, a small smirk appeared on 𝗧𝗂𝐿's lips, and 𝗧𝗂𝐿's gaze softened slightly, showing a flicker of respect. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 acknowledged that they would need to work together, albeit reluctantly. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 raised an eyebrow, teasing him about needing to be beaten down to admit it. As they began to formulate a plan, Superman flew through the streets toward the exit, thinking that he would arrive before them, leading to an all-out struggle. Suddenly, 𝗧𝗂𝐿 attacked Superman with a flash explosion, catching him off guard. Superman acknowledged 𝗧𝗂𝐿's return, his eyes glowing red once more. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 growled for 𝗧𝗂𝐿 to act, and 𝗧𝗂𝐿 appeared with one of 𝗧𝗂𝐿's arm cannons aimed at Superman, correcting 𝗧𝗂𝐿's earlier comment. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 fired the weapon, creating a massive blast that engulfed the area where Superman stood. The two students used the distraction to make their escape, but Superman remained unfazed by the attack. He admired their strategy, noting that they had aimed for the already damaged parts of the area to minimize the impact. As they ran toward the exit, the path ahead was marked by destruction from Superman's earlier attack. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 expressed hope that they were almost there, while 𝗧𝗂𝐿 marveled at the extent of Superman's power. They knew they had a slight advantage but needed to stay focused. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 devised a plan to attack Superman with his other cannon when he reached them. However, Superman suddenly appeared beside them, shocking the students. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 attempted to strike, but Superman swiftly destroyed both gauntlets, showcasing his overwhelming speed and strength. In a split second, Superman kicked 𝗧𝗂𝐿, sending him crashing into a building. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 tried to retaliate, but Superman pushed him away effortlessly. 𝗧𝗂𝐿, recovering quickly, attempted to attack again, but Superman caught him and slammed him to the ground, reminding them both that they still had much to learn. As the two students struggled to stand, Superman acknowledged their progress in working together but reminded them that it was only one of the conditions of the test. 𝗧𝗂𝐿's mind raced as he recognized Superman's incredible power, realizing that he was a formidable barrier, much like All Might. Frustrated, 𝗧𝗂𝐿 threw a punch at Superman, but the Man of Steel caught it with ease, taunting him. Before 𝗧𝗂𝐿 could react, he was thrown back to the ground by Superman's palm. Superman declared that their strategy had crumbled now that 𝗧𝗂𝐿's cannons were destroyed. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 roared in defiance, creating a massive explosion that allowed him to break free from Superman's grasp. He quickly moved to 𝗧𝗂𝐿's side, proposing to launch him toward the exit despite his reservations. Using another explosion, 𝗧𝗂𝐿 propelled 𝗧𝗂𝐿 forward, hoping for a miracle. Superman soared through the air and caught 𝗧𝗂𝐿, asking if he was going somewhere. As Superman prepared to end the confrontation, 𝗧𝗂𝐿 sprang into action, launching a series of explosions to distract him. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 struggled in Superman's grip, urging 𝗧𝗂𝐿 to escape. With determination, 𝗧𝗂𝐿's explosions forced Superman to shield his eyes, allowing 𝗧𝗂𝐿 to wriggle free and land HRD on the ground. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 shouted for 𝗧𝗂𝐿 to seize the moment. 𝗧𝗂𝐿 quickly recovered and sprinted toward 𝗧𝗂𝐿, who was keeping Superman occupied with continuous blasts. Reaching a side door near the exit, 𝗧𝗂𝐿 called for 𝗧𝗂𝐿 to follow him. 𝗧𝗂𝐿, exhausted and bruised, aimed a final, powerful explosion at Superman. The blast pushed Superman back just enough to create a brief opportunity. With Superman temporarily stunned, 𝗧𝗂𝐿 dashed through the side door, and 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 followed closely behind, successfully passing the exam. As Superman landed on the ground, he reflected on the students' performance, acknowledging that while the explosions weren't difficult to evade, they had fulfilled the exam's requirements. He couldn't bring himself to be too harsh on them. The students were taken to the infirmary, where 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 was quickly discharged. On his way out, he encountered Superman and asked if he had spoken to 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Superman confirmed that he had, noting that 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 had caused significant harm with his words and actions, which were not easily forgotten or healed. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 demanded to know why Superman would help 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 and why he hadn't issued a warrant against him. Superman calmly explained that he believed 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 could improve, just as 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 still hoped they could be friends. He emphasized that 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 had great potential, but he needed to acknowledge both his weaknesses and the strengths of others to grow stronger. 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴, taken aback, admitted he didn't know how to respond. Superman reassured him that he didn't need to say anything right away. Everyone deserved a chance to grow and change. The decision of what kind of person to become was up to 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 lay in the infirmary, his arm bandaged as he stared at the ceiling, reflecting on the exam. He felt a mix of pride and satisfaction for overcoming such a challenge alongside 𝐒𝐮𝐿𝐴. Despite their past conflicts, they had worked together and emerged victorious. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 thought that perhaps there was still a chance for friendship. With the exam concluded and their classmates safe, Class 1A returned to UA, ready to face future challenges with renewed determination and camaraderie that transcended rivalries. For 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 and 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, this marked the beginning of a new chapter in their journey as heroes in training. Each day would bring opportunities for growth, learning, and evolution as allies pursuing greatness. As the semester ended, Aizawa offered hope to the students who had failed the final exam, informing them they would still attend the special summer camp. Before that, they were granted 2 weeks of summer vacation. In Kai's apartment, Toshinori sat across from Kai, expressing excitement about an invitation from Melissa to the 𝐼-Expo. Kai leaned back in his chair, revealing he was already flying there that day, thanks to Melissa's arrangements. Toshinori raised an eyebrow, surprised by Kai's travel plans. Kai chuckled, hinting at his method of travel. Toshinori smiled fondly, acknowledging Kai's adventurous spirit. Kai mentioned he had been invited to the 𝐼-Expo and suggested that Toshinori use his ticket to take 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 along. Toshinori's expression softened as he confirmed Kai's plan, grateful for his son's thoughtfulness. Kai assured him it was all set, and with a small laugh, he prepared to leave. He approached the window, bags in hand, and leaped into the sky. As Kai soared through the air toward Island, he felt liberated by the vast ocean below and the warm sun above. Hours passed, and just as he began to enjoy the tranquility of his journey, a faint chime from his earpiece interrupted his thoughts. He tapped it, and a voice from the head of security for Island requested confirmation of his identity. Kai smiled at the formality and introduced himself as Superman, sending his verification code. After a moment, the security team confirmed his identity and granted him permission to land. As he touched down on Island, Kai was greeted by the bustling activity of the main airstrip. He chuckled to himself, noting the familiar busyness. A security guard approached, politely requesting to perform a routine inspection of his bags. Kai agreed and set his bags down for inspection. The guard methodically checked his belongings, ensuring everything was in order. After a few moments, the guard completed the inspection and smiled, confirming that everything was in order. The guard smiled as Kai nodded and prepared to leave, but the guard spoke again, a hint of nervousness in his voice. He mentioned that his son was a huge fan of Kai and asked if he could take a picture with him. Kai's face brightened with a friendly smile and he agreed happily. The guard quickly pulled out his phone and posed alongside Kai. They both smiled for the camera, and after the picture was taken, the guard looked even more thrilled. He expressed his gratitude, saying he knew his son would be excited to see the photo. Kai then reached into his bag and pulled out a shirt with his symbol, quickly signing it and handing it to the guard. He mentioned that he always carried a spare one to give out. The guard's eyes widened with surprise and gratitude as he thanked Kai for the incredible gift. Kai patted the guard on the back, expressing his appreciation for the guard's service, before walking towards the exit of the airport. He changed into his casual clothes to avoid drawing attention. Meanwhile, Melissa stood at the entrance of the airport, tapping her foot impatiently as she scanned the crowds. She knew 𝐾𝐮 was arriving any minute and, despite her excitement, felt a little nervous about what he might do this time. Finally, she spotted him walking casually in jeans, a t-shirt, and glasses. Melissa raised an eyebrow and shook her head in disbelief. Of all the things he could have done, he opted for the classic disguise. Noticing her reaction, 𝐾𝐮 approached with a mischievous grin. Melissa asked if the glasses were really necessary, her amusement evident. 𝐾𝐮 chuckled, adjusting the glasses slightly and explaining that it worked for some people. He added that he didn't want to cause a scene right after landing and was trying to blend in. Melissa sighed, shaking her head but unable to hide her smile. She teased him about how easily he could blend in, appreciating the effort nonetheless. 𝐾𝐮 laughed, pulling the glasses off and tucking them into his shirt pocket. He then inquired about their plans, recalling that Melissa mentioned there was a lot happening before the expo. Melissa's excitement bubbled over as she explained that there were new tech displays, live demos, and special events he might want to check out. She hinted at something else she wanted to discuss but decided to save that for later. Intrigued, 𝐾𝐮 expressed his interest in surprises. As they walked through the island grounds and arrived at the commercial zone, Melissa reminisced about their past experiences there. 𝐾𝐮 smiled, recalling the moment he saved her, the first person he had rescued. Melissa fondly repeated the words he had said after the rescue, and they continued their stroll through the bustling area, their laughter blending with the ambient noise of the expo. At one of the food stalls, Melissa decided to grab a quick bite. While waiting for their order, she looked over at 𝐾𝐮, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. She asked how life was as an assistant teacher at 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐻. 𝐾𝐮 replied that it had been eventful but that he really enjoyed working there. As they received their food, Melissa took a bite of her snack and turned back to 𝐾𝐮 with a thoughtful expression. She asked what his plans were after his year at 𝐒𝐮 was over. The week flew by in a blur of peaceful walks and fun activities. Now, 𝐾𝐮 was lying on a bed inside David's lab while he and Melissa observed the data being analyzed from his body. Curious, 𝐾𝐮 asked David for the verdict, trying to lighten the mood. David glanced up from the screens with a reassuring smile, explaining that they had been monitoring 𝐾𝐮's health and any potential residual effects from the experiments he had undergone 5 years ago. Melissa nodded, her expression a mix of anticipation and concern, emphasizing their longing to ensure there were no lingering effects that could affect him. David continued, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed the data. He noted that 𝐾𝐮's cells were absorbing solar energy as expected, with no unusual cerebral activity detected. They were not seeing any signs of residual effects from the experiments. 𝐾𝐮 relaxed into a smile of relief, expressing his worries about something potentially resurfacing. David understood his concerns and explained that they had conducted a thorough examination when 𝐾𝐮 first arrived at Island, ensuring there were no lasting modifications to his brain or any foreign influences. 𝐾𝐮 chuckled, mentioning how his dad had perfect timing in raiding that lab. David's eyes glinted with curiosity as he pointed out an increase in the amount of solar energy 𝐾𝐮's cells could absorb, which was logical given his age and the natural development of his abilities. Melissa leaned in with a curious expression and asked if 𝐾𝐮 had ever used all of his power at once. 𝐾𝐮 hesitated, admitting that he had learned to hold back over the years and hadn't really had the chance or need to let it all out. David joked about the poor soul who would face 𝐾𝐮 at full strength before suggesting he enjoy the rest of the day before more heroes arrived, reminding him that the expo party was that evening. Melissa agreed, encouraging 𝐾𝐮 to take a break and enjoy the festivities, noting he had been cooped up in the lab long enough. 𝐾𝐮 nodded, feeling a mix of relief and anticipation as he agreed that a change of scenery sounded perfect. As both exited, David turned on his computer again, reviewing the data from 𝐾𝐮. Meanwhile, 𝐾𝐮 and Melissa were seated at a cafe, engaged in conversation. Melissa, filled with curiosity, inquired about his favorite student. 𝐾𝐮 chuckled, explaining that he couldn't play favorites, but one student did stand out to him. Melissa's eyes sparkled with interest as she asked for the student's name. 𝐾𝐮 leaned back and shared that Midoriya Izuku was an impressive individual, known for his incredible determination and strategic mind. He was always thinking several steps ahead and analyzing every situation. Melissa nodded, recognizing the name. She mentioned having heard about him from the sports festival, noting that he had a power similar to Kai's and All Might's. Kai confirmed this, adding that while Izuku had not fully mastered his quirk, he was working hard at it. He mentioned that Izuku was coming with his father, who had taken an interest in him. Melissa observed that Izuku had a lot of potential but struggled with controlling his quirk. Kai smiled and acknowledged her keen observation, explaining that they had been working on Izuku's control, which was a constant challenge despite his progress. Melissa proposed that she might have something to help him. If Izuku's quirk was similar to All Might's, she could potentially create a solution to mitigate some of the risks associated with his power. She took out a small notebook to jot down her thoughts. Intrigued, Kai asked if she truly believed she could help him, to which Melissa eagerly replied that she would need to see Izuku's quirk in action up close. Observing how he used his power would allow her to design something specifically tailored to his needs. Just then Kai's phone rang. He glanced at it and saw a message from his father indicating they had